Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Short. Reeves for three. Good! Austin Reeves with the shot of his life. 2 minutes to go. Lakers lead by 6.
The Cubs have just gone back-to-back. Way up into the seats in right field. Cody Bellinger with a rocket against his former teammates. And the Cubs lead 3-1.
Now he's going. Stephen Card launches one way up into the air. Into left center field. Kiermaier to the track, to the wall. Gone! A 3-run homer for Christian Bethancourt. And the Rays jump in front 7-1.
And the payoff pitch. In the dirt, ball for it, gets away, and it rolls towards the A's dugout, and it goes into the A's dugout. So 1 run scores. Marte took a big turn at third, but Scott Barry is placing him there. Either way, the Mets lead 4-3 in the 10th.
One with a strikeout and a walk.
He swings and hits the ball to right field. That's hit well and deep, and that ball's a gunner. Nootbaar ties the game with his first home run of the year.
It's not a negative thing. We have to earn the right to say that we're a good team, and we have to fight to be a good team. It's like, I tell the guys sometimes the hardest thing in the world to do is to stay the heavyweight champion. You fight and grind to get there. You're so hungry to get there. Sometimes when you get there, you relax. I don't want our guys relaxing, and I don't want our staff relaxing, whether it's recruiting, whether that's football. I think sometimes we have a tendency to be like, oh, well, things are going to be better now. No, you got to make them better. You have to fight.
Hey, good morning. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Monday, 590 ESPN Omaha. Live on Twitter, live on YouTube. Happy to have you with us alongside Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. My voice is gone.
I can't use my glasses.
I am very hoarse.
Why?
From this weekend.
This is my horse. My horse is amazing.
Well, I always get myself in trouble when the DJ really starts going.
Oh, Lord.
I'm a dancer. I'm like Kevin James in Hitch when you hit the dance floor.
Get up! Don't ever do that again. What?
Q-tip. No, I get out there, and it was cool because of the wedding I was at over the weekend. Didn't really have a true DJ. They did, but he was just playing Spotify.
Oh, okay.
But he took recommendations all night.
And could do it right off the bat.
And could just add it to the queue. So, there was a good spread of music. And, of course, it started clean early on in the night, kids at the ceremony, kids at the reception. And then, once 8 o'clock hit, which at that point, it felt like midnight because we were up for so long throughout the day. Lights go off. What's the contraption that shoots all the colored lights everywhere?
Shane?
Not
just the lights.
It's like a disco ball, but
I see
multicolored lights.
Yeah,
right. And
I like contraption. That's
then the beat just completely changed.
Yeah,
dropped.
Where
it went from "Remember Me," Alan Jackson, to "Bop" by Lil Baby or to Baby. Excuse me, Lil Baby. It went night and day.
So where was the wedding?
To Hard. It was in. This is funny, man. It's in Salisbury, Missouri. Which, if you've never been to Salisbury, you don't need to go because I can tell you everything about it.
I drove past some randoms in Missouri.
Which this drive was boring. I always tell you, going back to St. Louis is a really boring drive. But you're on the highway, so you can really cruise. Mm-hmm. This was man, you take this turn at St. Joe, and now you're taking these back road highways.
Oh, you should have dropped.
You
should have dropped me off.
I should have.
We played at the Hy-Vee Arena and then had the double dip to go a little further to Lee Summit North for this camp. So kill two birds with one stone with both little dudes.
Well, we could have talked
being in Kansas City.
We could have talked the whole way, kind of like Sauter and JP.
I believe every bit of that conversation.
Oh, what DB mimicked with Sauter on Friday legitimately happened on their road trip over the weekend.
Yeah, what else were those two going to talk about?
Yeah. Well, at some point I'm like, man, maybe Jacob's I'll just pull out my phone. He'd probably be the guy too that pulled out his laptop and started doing work. But Sauter,
can I get a hotspot?
Sauter wouldn't let him get a word in. No, so I'm driving with Ashley, and the reason I said we could have talked the whole time, Ashley's a sleeper. She likes to say that she's a great car pal, but really she's like, hey, I'm going to take a nap. And I'm like, that's cool. Like, I'll listen to the radio. Like, I'll put on my podcast. But then at some points, I'm like, man, I'm getting tired. Like, I need some interaction. Yeah. I need some conversation. But the reason I found out it was Salisbury, we go to this bar Friday night in Moberly. That's where we were staying. So we stayed in Moberly. The reception was in Salisbury, and the wedding was in Glasgow, which was like a 40-minute drive from Moberly. So we go to this bar, and this random group of girls that obviously knew we were outsiders in this town came up to us because we were dressed kind of nice. We just got back from the rehearsal and the rehearsal dinner. And the question that they asked wasn't like, hey, are you in town for a wedding? It was one of two options. You're either in a fraternity or you had a funeral today. That was it. Like, those are my two choices. And I'm like, I'm going to go with C and say, no, we're in town for a wedding. And then they said, well, where's the wedding? And I said, it's in Glasgow. Glascow. Glasgow? You mean Glasgow? So that's what we're doing.
You're a stranger, and in typical DB Fast, you'd be like, oh, that's what we're on?
Exactly. And so then I'm like, yeah, Glasgow. Was the reception in Glasgow? Because there aren't a lot of venues. No, it's in Salisbury. Salisbury. Did you hear him? Salisbury.
Are you joking?
No. Salisbury. And I'm like, what is happening? And then we went on to get our butt kicked in beer pong by these same two girls, which their elbows were way over the cup.
Oh, here you go.
Way
the sore loser. Shane is shaking his head like, I can't believe my man is mad.
Bobo the clown. Just way over.
Are you mad? Are you mad? Are you mad right now?
Man, they kicked our butts.
Wow.
You seem very hurt right now. You're gonna.
So that's where I was over the weekend.
Wow, that's wild.
You're mad.
I didn't, however, read off a sheet of paper for my best man speech. I let it ride, and it worked out so much better.
I'm telling you, man.
So much better. And I wrote down a few thoughts, but then I just bullet pointed it in on my phone.
Trust your phone.
And, I don't want to sound like I'm being arrogant or hyping myself up, but at the very end, people were like, that was really good.
Oh, good.
Like, that was
good for you.
They said I could be a comedian, and I'm like, gosh, no way.
Good for you, my friend.
That thing wet.
That thing wet, man.
But that was DB advice right there to say, hey, just let it ride.
My former boss at the old place that got me started in radio sent me a super long message at 4:54 a.m. about emceeing the Jet Awards and how proud he was.
That's awesome.
It was Shane. Is that not vintage, Neil?
Oh, that was from Neil? Nice.
Yeah. He said he went back and watched it on NCN. So I say that to say sometimes being affirmed, not all bad, bro.
Mm-mm.
How about in terms of affirmation, the Dodgers needing a walk-off to not get swept against your...
How'd that feel?
Well, it's lousy because there's a lot of Cubs fans running around this place. But all of a sudden, they can't score. So, I mean, I did enjoy Muncie.
Cody Bell whacking one.
Yeah, well, he'll be okay for them. He'll be okay for them. And remember, I like the Cubs off season.
And I don't hate the amount of pressure that he got released after going to Chicago.
No, they needed it
because when he had that season in LA, it was like, hey,
yeah, it was good for everybody.
Every expectation is set on him the next season.
Good for everybody.
And then it did not work. And then he just couldn't get back. So it was a good change for him. Good transition. Same thing for the Cardinals, though. Like, they had to get a walk-off in the 10th against the Pirates.
Yeah.
No big deal.
I had a buddy text me, oh, Ollie Marmol on the hot seat. I'm like, let's not go that far. They're 7-9. Like, let's not go that far.
Yeah, but you're almost in the cellar.
Mm-hmm. This is a team with expectation that was set here, and they are performing here.
I do like the fact you're rocking St. Louis, though.
Always.
Repping.
Yeah, always after a weekend. Win or lose.
Yeah,
Win or lose.
rep the city.
Oh, yeah. STLSC, speaking of repping the city,
Oh, man.
they are fantastic. Who would have thought an MLS team would have had a start like them? And then even the Battlehawks, they had a chance to clinch their spot in the playoffs. Did not.
Once they got the pick and then turned it right back over, you just got the sense it was a wrap.
Yeah, so
Week
10 is going to be complicated in the XFL.
So are we impressed that there isn't one losing record in the AL East right now in baseball?
It's pretty bizarre.
Not one.
That's pretty bizarre. What are the Red Sox sitting at?
500.
8-8.
8-8.
What's the run differential on Monday?
For the Rays?
Yeah.
Plus 72. Yeah.
And they lost back-to-back games.
Plus. Would you like to, just for laughs and giggles, take a guess at the next closest run differential?
In the plus column?
Yep.
I will say 32.
You're only off by 4, but who has it? It's 28.
28. Can you give me AL or NL or no?
NL.
NL. Okay, that helps. I will say the Braves.
The other B team, the Brewers.
Really? Plus 28.
Yeah. And it's rare for them because usually, I mean, we've seen a couple of years where they've had negative run differential and been almost atop the division. Yeah, that Brewers.
Gus Farland.
Plus 28.
Gus Farland took a line drive to the face on Saturday.
You're into those line drives to the faces, huh? Kind of balls to the face. That's the second time we've talked about somebody getting hit in the face with a baseball in the last 5 days.
Who was the other one?
Oh, took one right under the side of the cheekbone, and we talked about slapping meat. Like, what's wrong with your memory? And I said, and then I go, God, you know that conversation we had yesterday about taking a shot from Tyson versus taking a fastball to the head?
Yep, I remember when you bring it up. I just need some help. I need some help to get there.
The world is wrong with you, man.
No, so Gus is the boyfriend of a girl I went to grade school with.
Really?
In St. Louis. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, man, I hope it's not scary. And he said he was okay, but dude looked like he was loosey-goosey after getting up from.
I don't know if I've ever been hit. I don't think I've ever been hit with 100 miles of anything. I really don't. So I would probably be loosey-goosey too.
From 90 feet.
Yeah, even a good punch, they're not generating 100 miles an hour. Because I've been hit with some good ones of those, but never been hit by a vehicle at 100 miles an hour.
Speaking of punches, you know that punch game?
Yeah.
At like the arcade game?
Yes, sir.
So I had the groom over the weekend play that game at the bar. I said, Stone, we're going to put you up against your sister. See who can punch harder.
Does she sock folks?
I said, Stone, you go first. She used to be a softball pitcher.
Oh, okay.
So I said, let's see who the stronger Stone is. So Andrew loosens up. He's kind of nervous because all the eyes are on him. And he takes one punch. And
460.
Barely touches the bag.
Oh,
like it goes up and it's like 21.2.
Oh, Lord.
Shelby goes up and just doesn't even step into the punch. Just goes, it goes like 40.
Because she knew she's easy breezy.
Yeah. But
crazy weekend, man, when it came to sports.
Long weekend, too.
At least
NBA playoffs were exciting.
Although I just hope the injuries aren't substantial. I don't want to see that.
And I think they will be.
Well, I think hopefully Giannis, like people use contusion generally. Like when I think of contusion, I think bruise.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which isn't that the fancy term for it? For a bruise? Contusion?
So because he had a back bruise, he couldn't continue? Doesn't seem right.
I don't know. I mean, landing that hard right on the bone back here.
I mean, I get it. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
But hopefully that's not that serious. Ja's x-rays were negative.
Although when he was doing his presser, did not sound confident that he was going to play anytime soon.
No. But it was already hurt. So I don't know, like if he was just getting by. Because remember, he didn't shoot a 3 until he made those 2 back-to-backers. And I think that was maybe in the third quarter.
Yep.
So he, and it's not like he's firing it up from distance all the time, but he wasn't even really shooting jump shots, as though that may have been a problem. But Memphis is probably in trouble.
Very much so.
But
especially with how the Lakers are playing.
But we kind of like the Lakers to win that series anyway.
Yeah.
But you have to remind me before we get too far into this deal, ton of stuff to cover, rules presser, which, by the way, I kind of think I'm onto something.
Living in your head?
Well, yeah, that. But I do think we're onto something when I said, gosh, so now let's make that 3 pressers in a row where he's apparently trying to get a message across.
Yeah, I said to you this morning, I go, somebody made him mad.
Yeah, I don't know if it's as much anger as much as I think when he talks about intentionality. Maybe he's intentionally making folks uncomfortable.
I just think somebody said
because you're talking last Thursday, Tuesday, then today, yesterday, or Saturday, where he's like, you know what? Keep the seat hot.
Well, yeah, somebody though is living in Candyland, and he's like, no, we're not.
Why you got to be a Candyland reference?
Well, I just was thinking more of like a sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, but I was looking for the land.
Guessing you never seen Django Unchained.
Oh, yikes! Yeah, not that. No,
I don't think so.
We're not going there. I'm thinking more of that board game, you know.
Oh,
the candy cane forest.
Good morning, man. Making sure you're up and you're
trying
us.
to get to Elsa at the very end.
Man,
the snow princess. Wrong game, BB.
Wrong game. No, so I like it though, and he keeps using my word that I like. You got to grind
because iron sharpens iron.
He said that again too.
Yes, he did. It's definitely something. When I get some courage, I'll ask.
Well, and this is an exciting week too.
Maybe during pregame.
It's a week
pre-scrimmage.
Nebraska fans have been looking forward to for a while now.
It's exciting.
You kind of get to fill that empty void that's been missing since the end of last football season, and you get to see at least these guys finally put it all together on the field. Who knows what the format's still going to look like? He didn't really have a good answer for the question because he doesn't know who's going to be healthy and who's not.
He does want to play football,
but he wants to scrimmage.
Yeah.
He wants to scrimmage. He wants the ones to go against the ones and the twos to go against the twos. Yeah. And that's the only way to get better too. Why would you match yourself up against, the guy second in line when you're trying to give your ones the best reps possible?
Fresh off a Saturday scrimmage where I'm not so sure that went the way that he wanted it to.
And maybe that's why he was a little ticked too. Yeah. It could have been internally. Maybe it was some players thinking like, hey, we're better than we actually are. He's like reminding his team, no, we're not. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
But kudos to him on addressing the problems, but also saying, hey, we are further along than I thought we'd be in this process. Like he didn't start with that. He started with, no, we have a lot of things that we need to address, especially not letting go of the football. But at the same time,
I'm telling you,
these guys are working.
I think Saturday was another testament. There are no guarantees. Listen, I'm not saying it just to be saying it. There are no guarantees right now with that quarterback spot. I think it's going to continue to be an evolution process.
See, I'm with you, and I've heard already people, and I'm going to say people because I've heard it from a bunch of different sources, from fans, from media members, from whoever, that are locking in Jeff Sims.
Oh, no.
They're just – I had a buddy that I was at the wedding with that's my Nebraska guy that was talking Jeff Sims all weekend. And I'm like, are you sure?
Like, we'll see.
You may be right. You have the best chance of being right now.
Correct.
But are you 100% there? Is that the avenue you're taking?
Shoot, are you?
This is
are you
80%
there? This
is not hey, we need somebody locked in. I know people want that, but I said it on Friday how fascinated I was with the fact that nobody's has a position that's locked in.
Yeah.
Everyone's job's up for grabs. Now, if you really got down to the nitty gritty of it all, you'd say, yeah, it's probably likely Ben Scott is starting on the line, right? You'd probably think like, oh, okay, like Nash is going to start. I think you can find those guys that will play. Newsome will play. Farmer will play. But that doesn't mean that they have a position yet.
Yeah.
And I just find it super interesting.
Where's your guy, MJ Sherman?
Yeah, MJ, I should have led off with all three of my guys. Yeah, Gunnar Gatula on the right side, and MJ Sherman. Yeah, all my guys.
Oh,
Malcolm Hartzog in the back.
Yep. That. Those are your teammates.
I mean, how far separated are Harburg and Sims right now?
Yeah, that's good. That's a great question. That is a great question. Hey, Shane, do me a favor. Play clip 6. See if we can get an idea on what maybe the format will be with a spring game. Play Rule 6 for us.
Yeah, we had 2 guys that got banged up during the scrimmage. It looked like Judy got hurt early on. John, Goodman got hurt later on, but nothing. I don't think it's major. Like they rolled their ankles, so came out of it, I think, pretty healthy. Unless something comes up to tonight or something. Sorry.
I like that laugh.
What kind of dice would you be willing to roll at this stage? Let it rip.
Let it ride. Just see it. Let's see it on the field. Let's see it in front of fans. Let's see if it works.
We got a ton to get to with the lineup today, which
Sam McKewon at 8 o'clock.
I don't know how we're gonna parse through it because I've got to figure out how long I can keep Sam, but that's okay. Then we got Brady Oltmans, and then we'll talk with Kevin Allen.
It's so funny because we give Sam the longest segment, and we're like, maybe we need another 10.
Short form podcast. The heck with radio, because I need clarity on something before the end of the show. I want to know, and I can't remember who asked the question in the 6-pack because I took the field, but I think this team may have been may have been inside the Big 5. So I need a rundown again of who was in the Big 5. So I know the Maple Leafs, the Avalanche,
the Bruins,
the
Lightning, and the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I feel good.
I would too.
No,
because I'm going to ask.
No, you took the Big 5, right?
Yeah,
I took the field.
Oh, you feel good about the field?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I feel good about the Big 5,
especially when I saw their odds to win the West.
Whose odds?
Now we call that a tease. What? You tried to Jedi mind trick me? I almost went Mace Windu, but I better go somebody like Obi-Wan.
You almost said it. It was on the tip of your tongue.
Only I can be Mace.
It's almost like me when I was giving the speech over the weekend, and I was talking about a Halloween party I went to, and I go, no, I'm not going to give the year.
Fall of 2021.
Right, exactly.
Like, oh my.
Friends zone.
Yeah.
I was at a party in the friend zone.
Yeah, who's this kid? No. I want to.
Who do you think Sam would take?
In hockey? I don't know if he follows hockey. I do think
Is he a Hawks fan? I know.
I think it would be the Blackhawks. Okay. But no, I'll take the field.
Worst case scenario, if we can't figure out who's going to win, I bet Kevin Allen will be able to tell us at the end of the show.
So I need to have my ducks in a row by then.
He is columnist for Hockey Buzz, Red Wings beat writer.
So happy that I guessed the Sabres.
Are you a B-movie guy?
Nope.
I'm going to ask you something during the break.
Oh, Lord.
When we come back, we'll get into the practice audio from Saturday. Hear more from Coach Rule. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. We're live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. If you hear my voice give out at any point, it's because I was yelling and screaming to Mr. Brightside over the weekend.
Who's Mr. Brightside?
Jealousy turning.
No, you told me about that, man. I don't even know why you're into that.
Well, they like that song because they went to Mizzou, and you know how they put in the expletive and then put KU after it?
Yeah.
When the beat really drops.
Go KU.
Yeah, go KU. Kind of like what the fans do here. Go Iowa.
Yeah.
Like go Hawkeyes. Yeah, that's
Got
what they want to say. But no, I'm recovering. The voice is trying to come back, and then I have to do the same thing next weekend. Same thing.
In Punta Cana?
In Punta Cana, which I looked at the weather Friday, Saturday, Sunday, chance of rain.
Oh, don't be that dude. This is like all these pieces. My sphere of influence is like got they're miffed over the spring game weather. I'm like, man, listen, it's 50 in April. We'll be fine.
I'm not. You can play football in the rain. You can't go to the beach in the rain.
Oh, Claude,
We'll be all right.
Exactly, Doc. So I'm kind of happy the spring game. I don't want it like it's spring. It's April. It's Nebraska, and we need the precip.
A lot of recruits coming this weekend as well.
Kinda.
Like, I feel like it's a decent.
Yeah, it's
field.
a decent weekend.
And it kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier on in the first segment of the show when Coach Rule was talking about the message and earning the right to be a good team, which he thought they'd be at this point, which is kind of cool. But they're still not a good team, is what he ended up saying.
Yeah.
We want to be a good team, but you have to earn that point. And what's a side effect of that? Getting recruits to commit. That's the side effect of being a good team, a good program, which we kind of saw that with Michigan over the weekend, getting a pretty good offensive tackle. But at the end of the day, until you can get there, you're not going to win a recruit just by bringing them in for a weekend. You have to have that sense of, I can be successful here. And that's the message that he said over the weekend, set forward for his team, and also added in why they won't relax this week. Because they don't get to relax. They don't have the right to relax. They have to work hard, and they have to give it their all every single day, or else they won't be ready for what's to come.
Well, I think at the end of the day, I mean, I think when you have that conversation, you have to kind of start with where you think is it where the coaches thought that they would be? Is it where the fans thought they would be? Because when you're relative to like,
it would be where the fans based
the
on
starting point.
Saying.
Because some people, if you talk to those people now that say, my favorite line is, I just want it to look like football. Right. And I think I know what that means. Right. You don't want to see balls on the ground. You want to see people kind of fly around. I think you want to see contact.
Right now, it looks like Moneyball and spring training.
The occasional big plays. But do you think like what's it look like? Because inevitably what happens if the offense moves the ball too much, defense is going to be in trouble. And if the defense is too dominant, then all the talk we heard about potentially being better up front is like a moot point, right? So I think what's the benchmark? Do you just want to see do you want to see a bunch of 6-yard plays and then have people say, it's not capable of making the big play, but we didn't give up any, or something like that? Like, I don't know. It kind of depends on the frame of reference. I don't really know what I want to see, except for I want to see like versus like, because I like the fact, and I think, was it Bullock's dad? Somebody said something to me a couple of weeks ago at a practice. They go, it's just cool to see everybody get a chance to win a job. So if that's the case, it could be fairly competitive, right? Like if you have some guys from off the radar that hadn't had a chance to maybe win a job. But I think the fan base has to be prepared for that too, right? If Ty Hahn beats out, let's say Victor Jones as one of the top however many wide receivers, it can't be, man, we heard about Victor. You know what I mean? Because in one vein, if we're embracing the competition and it being wide open, then you may have to have some of the recalibrate the expectations that somebody can win a job that you weren't planning on. I mean, that's just how good competition goes.
And I love that you brought up competition, because that's what Coach White brought up on Thursday in regards to saying, hey, there's no dead set, locked in position right now. because we want to make it competitive for our guys. What does competition do, right? Competition brings out emotion that you can't capture anywhere else. It puts a sense on focus, on camaraderie. You can hit the successes and the failures by presenting competition, which is kind of like when Coach Rule was talking about the punch being thrown at practice over the weekend. That's intensity. That comes with competition, whether it's good in some eyes, whether it's bad to some. You kind of have to balance the two and think about both viewpoints and say, like, hey, you're passionate, which is probably why it came out, but you can't do it at the same time. Hey, you have to hold yourself accountable.
Hey, Shane, what clip was that where he talked about the end of practice?
I want to think it's...
Is it 7?
8, maybe?
8. Shane, play clip 8.
Okay, I can play 8.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I couch what I said. I'm not saying that we're not where I thought we would be. I'm just saying we have a long way to go to get there. I think Ed's done a really nice job. The way we look at special teams is we try to teach a lot of fundamentals that carry over to other positions.
It's not it.
I feel like it was a longer clip, though. And was it buried in an answer?
Mm-hmm. It was buried in the answer where he was not very happy, or it was the game day situations. Right. Where he wanted to put them through multiple situations. Shane, if you don't have it, I am going to send it to you because I'm not so sure that we exactly cut that one up. And Shane, I have just now sent it to you. So we'll cue that up. But he was talking about making winning plays late and winning situations. He broke it down into like good players and bad players. He's like, people think good players make good plays and bad players make bad plays. But sometimes you do things out of character on either side, right? A bad player can occasionally do something good and a good player can occasionally do something bad. And he was talking about going through all these scenarios where he wants to put them through it X amount of time. So when they get there and it hits them, that they're not going to hit panic. And I think maybe it was Adam. Somebody asked, it was Adam, right? I think on
Twitter.
On Twitter, is how many times have you said this to yourself in the last 5 years out loud? It was like 26, right? Because when I look at, that's about the number of games where I said to myself, for all the conversations we talk about talent, if you just do one or two things different when it matters, the result can probably change, even though no singular thing really can dictate the outcome unless it happens at the end of a game. But my point in saying that was, if you do the little things, you put yourself in a much better position to win, even though all these other things aren't going your way. You need better this. You don't have as good of that. But yeah, if you compartmentalize in the stretch in the final drive against Michigan, potentially at home and the place is going crazy, if you just take better care of the ball, right? Like, you're okay.
You talk about those close losses.
You're beating a team that's going to make a run at the playoffs. But everybody talks about we need more talent. No, you need to control what you can control and then let the rest follow. Right. You can always get better players, but do the small things. Get a quarterback to the ground in West Lafayette. The worst runner on the field. Get him on the ground. And it's a different conversation. Get Wisconsin off the field on 3rd and 9 last year when you had pitched a shutout in the first half. On third, just one play, man. Don't let Malusi leak out of the backfield on 4th down. One play. And you're having a different conversation. Right. So you always want better players. But, man, sometimes if you could just make it when it happens instead of that sphincter puckering up, you give yourself a chance.
As you said in the fourth quarter, one play can change the game, but middle of the game, one play doesn't change the game. Yeah. But one play dictates the game. It can start a trend and a bad trend.
Can't lose it early, but it sure can't put you behind the 8 ball.
When we come back, we'll hit on that clip that DB alluded to, and we'll talk about how those situational moments can help this team moving forward. That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes.
And we're putting them in a lot of situations. We finished today. It was, I think it was Keith, it was like 9 seconds, balls on the 9, no timeouts, you're down 4. And they're having to process that real quickly. How many downs do I have? I have 2 downs. And then we didn't score. And then we had a guy on defense punch a guy on offense. And then it was a flag, right? So, and I won't say who it was, but that happened, right? And so it's not real cool. And I'm not the cool guy, because the defense thinks they won. I'm like, no, untimed down. Right. And I scream at the defense and I make them run a gas, or the coaches too. And they go sit on the sideline. And then there's one play left and Jeff scrambles around. He hits someone, Marcus, I think, in the end zone for touchdown. And I told the offense, if you score, run right in the locker room. They run right in the locker room and the defense has to stand there. Right. The defense won the day. Right. The defense won the whole scrimmage. But at the end of the day, they didn't make the play at the end to win it. Right. And it wasn't anything physical. It was just mental, our awareness of the situation, our awareness of doing the right thing. And so I believe that good teams do good things and bad teams do bad things. And most of the world believes good teams have good players and bad teams have bad players. Well, good players do good things, but we have a bunch of talented guys. I just got to keep bringing them along situationally, where they get, because we're going to be in games this year, man. It's going to come down to the very end. And I don't want our heart rates going through the roof we're so nervous. I want us to have been there 100 times. So the situational football this week, I think, can be really fun. I went and practiced against Coach Belichick and saw the way he did it. And so I stole that from him. And so I do it with the guys and just keep throwing different situations at them at different times. And the coaches can barely hear it. And the players are having to communicate to the coaches. So that's a long, long, long answer.
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Welcome back, 888-638-4876. If you'd like to get involved in the show, Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. Going back to what we were talking about in the previous segment, about situational football and preparing for those moments and closing out games in the fourth quarter or winning the play, essentially, is what that was. Defense may have won the day, but the offense ended up winning the play. Shane, you have that clip?
And we're putting them in a lot of situations. We finished today. It was, I think it was Keith, it was 9 seconds, balls on the 9, no timeouts, you're down 4. And they're having to process that real quickly. How many downs do I have? I have 2 downs. And then we didn't score. And then we had a guy on defense punch a guy on offense. And then it then it was a flag, right? So, and I won't say what it was, but, that happened, right? So it's not real cool, and I'm not the cool guy, because the defense thinks they won. I'm like, no, untie down, right? And I scream at the defense and I make them run a gas, or the coaches too, and they go sit on the sideline, and then there's one play left, and Jeff scrambles around, he hits someone, Marcus, I think, and then touchdown. And I told the offense, if you score, run right in the locker room. They run right in the locker room, and the defense has to stand there, right? The defense won the day, right? The defense won the whole scrimmage. But at the end of the day, they didn't make the play at the end to win it, right? And it wasn't anything physical. It was just mental, our awareness of the situation, our awareness of doing the right thing. And so I believe that good teams do good things and bad teams do bad things. And most of the world believes good teams have good players and bad teams have bad players. Well, good players do good things, but we have a bunch of talented guys. I just got to keep bringing them along situationally, like where they get, because we're going to be in games this year, man. It's going to come down to the very end. And I don't want our heart rates going through the roof like we're so nervous. I want us to have been there 100 times. So the situational football this week, I think, can be really fun. I went and practiced against Coach Belichick and saw the way he did it. And so I stole that from him. And so I do it with the guys and just keep throwing different situations at them at different times. And the coaches can barely hear it, and the players are having to communicate to the coaches. So that's a long, long, long answer.
So it's funny. A couple years ago, I was on air and I was having this conversation with Michael, right? Our colleague over here at Hurrdat. By the way, we may have to get to Let It Fly. I may have to get over there, you and I, and check it out. But anyway,
I'm all for new venues. That place looks sweet.
But so he got on this thing. And we didn't have a word for it at first. He was describing all these things that happens in the course of those games. And he would he probably wrote it down. He was talking about havoc plays and getting behind the sticks and down in distance. And he goes, what am I talking about? It's like, it's like their situational awareness is so bad. Like what's wrong with our situational awareness? And I remember for like 3 weeks, situational awareness was like the word of the show.
Of the day.
Seriously. You know what's happened? What I just say to you 5 minutes ago off air. We were talking about food. And I go, man, that's just lack of situational awareness, right? Like, where am I? What am I doing? So once he said that, and I started, it kind of came to fruition. You can ask our guys at Westside. I say it all the time, just as a built-in practice. Where am I? What am I doing? Where am I? What am I doing? I don't care if you're on the sidelines. I don't care if you're on the field. I don't care if you're in the classroom. Just take every minute or so, take some quick self-inventory. And after time, it gets super repetitive. Or just emotional memory. And it's almost like he's speaking to our hearts, right? Because how many times have we had this conversation in the last 10 years?
One too many.
Situational, just making plays. We went through a 4 or 5 year stretch where I felt like every week we invented new ways to lose. You know what situational awareness is? Not kicking it onside. That is situational awareness. Where am I? What are we doing? Right? What's the feel for going on in the game? Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's just, again, simple, apparently not easy, right? It's easy to say, or excuse me, simple to say, not real easy to do. Because I think our thinking in the moment, we wouldn't say it just got away from me. We wouldn't say some of the excuses that we make when we make shoddy decisions if our situational awareness was better.
Was active.
Now there's this thing called free will, right? Like, I get it.
You do you,
but
live your life.
But the buoy, the balance, like, I think we would be amazed if we check that a little more. Where am I? Even if you're driving. Every couple 2-3 minutes. Oh, that needle starts to get to 86. Where am I? what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Give yourself a chance to not.
Should I slow down?
To not get pulled over, right? Just give yourself a chance. Now you can make.
Do you risk it? Do you chance it? Like, well, you got to be okay with the consequence.
Nebraska was playing Troy, I believe, some years ago. 3rd and 18, maybe 19. And a targeting call on an incomplete pass kept the game-clinching drive alive. Where am I? What am I doing? Hey, it's third and
forever.
No, hey, nothing cheap. Nothing cheap. Let's say it's 3rd and 7, right? What routes do they like to run? Okay, we got chains, we got speed outs, we got hitches. Sit on chains and speed outs and hitches. It's 3rd and 6, and I'm 5 yards off. Do I need to give ground as a DB? No. Sit on the sticks. Oh my gosh, how'd we just give up that 3rd down completion to Illinois? Right? Like, where am I? What am I doing? Sounds simple. Sure isn't easy.
Well, and it's a lot of times.
Oh my gosh.
People like to take chances because they want the greater reward. And unfortunately, sometimes that can sway our judgment.
No, I'm with you.
Or a person's judgment. Because you think you have done enough to deserve that outcome, that you're okay with taking a chance here or going out on a limb, whereas if you did play it safe, played it a little more conservatively, did the little things just to get there, you can't just take chances and be bad, right? If you're really good, sometimes you have to take chances just to change it up so that people don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, if you're playing cards.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like it kind of applies to a lot of different things.
Yeah, I get you.
If you're not a good football team, you don't just take a ton of chances. No, you keep it simple. You start winning games, you start compiling some W's, and then you take your chances as the season goes on. In an onside kick moment, you're in the Super Bowl. You do an onside kick at a halftime. That chance is worthy because you're in the biggest game. You're trying to do something different. You're trying to surprise somebody, change momentum. Opposed to week 0, and you're in the first game of the season. You don't need to take a chance. Add some things up. Compile them together.
Situational
awareness.
I wonder, like, those stressful situations are important, but you know what's almost as important? Like the outcomes of your decision making. Like, I think understanding consequences is not stressed enough.
And stop making excuses for people's consequences.
So you know, it's like I always felt like people should add more to it than they were like, you know, like, man, life's about choices. Some of them are good and some of them are bad. Yeah, I get that. But what you better continue to tell people is they all have consequences. So what the real question is can you live with those consequences? That's like, you know, I always
what
like to add
down to. Can
I live with the consequences? If you can't, you better do something different. Hey, if you can't, then let them hang. But if you can kind of do that in the moment, are you prepared to live with the consequences? If that's the case, man, knock yourself out. But if not, let that be your guide to change it up.
And I'll tell you, Coach Rule is prepared to live with whatever comes with it.
So, and I think but he'll be calculated, I think, in the moment, right? Because he strikes me as a risk reward guy, right? Like, he's constantly always weighing the risk versus the reward.
Mm-hmm.
And there's
but it's never a high risk.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Well, at least what I've been seeing out of him in short moments.
Right now, I think he is very much in tune with, man, we better just do the basics right, just to give ourselves a chance. If we need to evolve and do some other things to spice it up, maybe we can. But he strikes me as the type of guy that is do the basics first. So we'll see how many dividends that can pay early.
Ultimately, this team, this fan base wants to win. but you don't just jump to 10 on a scale of 1 to 10 to get to those wins.
Why do you think it's been so important for him? And I felt like, Shane, what can you play the clip that I sent you last night? I want to play this one. And
should we wait and take it out of the break?
What do we got?
Sam?
30 seconds? Yeah. Well, we're going to play it for Sam coming back out of the break and get his thoughts first, considering he's the smart one. I thought he was, after the conversation with Mitch Sherman, and then I had a meltdown on Benning Bites, kind of alluding to this.
Was Coach Rule listening to that on Wednesday night?
I don't know, but it was an aha moment because I didn't know. I was like, I think this is what he's after. This is what he's after. I think it really is now more than ever. Exactly what he's after.
So, you'll ask Sam next.
Yeah. Coming up, Sam McKewon.
Sports editor, Omaha World-Herald, here on Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes.
Mental. You have to. A negative thing. It's not a negative thing. We have to earn the right to say that we're a good team, and we have to fight to be a good team.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes.
Go upstairs, have some barbecue, find a way to work on some football too, and then come in Monday. So this week is not like, hey, tomorrow do what you do, get your schoolwork done, but find a way to work on some football too, and then come in Monday. Find a way to work on some football. Come in Monday on some football too, but find a way to work on some football too. And then come in. A way to work on some football. A way to work on some football. But find a way to work on some football.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
It's not a negative thing. We have to earn the right. Find a way to work on some football.
Here is the sports editor. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
It's not a negative thing. We have to earn the right to say that we're a good team. And we have to fight to be a good team. It's like, I tell the guys sometimes that the hardest thing in the world to do is to stay the heavyweight champion. You fight and you grind to get there. You're so hungry to get there. Sometimes you get there, you relax. I don't want our guys relaxing, and I don't want our staff relaxing, whether that's recruiting, whether that's football. I think sometimes we have a tendency to be like, oh, well, things are going to be better now. No, you got to make them better. You have to fight. Like we're not a great team yet. So I want us to be a great team, and they want to be a great team. So I'm just like, that's my message is like, man, go upstairs, have some barbecue, go home, enjoy your weekend, go to church tomorrow, do what you do, get your schoolwork done, but find a way to work on some football.
How easy is it? He's different, man. Wow.
Plucking thoughts and words right out of your head.
That's unbelievable.
Right out of what we talked about last week.
Unbelievable.
Just earning the right to win. Back with you, Coffee and Cream. Sam McKewon here now, sports editor of the Omaha World-Herald at SW McKewon OWH, as he is every Monday on the show at 8 o'clock. Sam, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Sam, good. How was the weekend, man? Quiet?
Actually, pretty quiet.
Not too bad?
Yeah, like we didn't get any basketball commits. So, yeah.
That's the standard.
Hey, listen, Nebraska baseball got a sweep for all our consternation, and I know, well, who have they played? I get it, right? But I'm not sure the Big Ten is going to.
Team with half a coaching staff.
Right? Stop. They did hit 7 home runs, and Bryce Matthews continues to pad his player of the year stats, but
he could go pro now.
You're good. This is where Nebraska needs to be. We can't knock this baseball team for being atop the Big Ten right now because I think we think on paper that this is what they're capable of.
Yeah, I mean they are. You can knock them. I mean you don't lose. You're 0-2 against UNO, which isn't a very good team. You can knock them.
Tough crowd.
Tough crowd. I'm serious. Like enough of this. Like that Nebraska athletics. I mean, Rule brought it up. They patted stuff on the back every time they went 3 in a row. I mean, if they're who they think they are and who they have the capability of being, then they'll win 8 of the next 9. They'll go and they'll beat Iowa in the series, and they'll beat Creighton, and they'll beat UNO, and they'll beat North Dakota State. They'll sweep Minnesota. That's who they are. Or they'll go 5-4 in that stretch, and then they'll go 1-2 against Iowa, and they'll win a couple against Minnesota, and then somebody will flash the standings and see that they're in second, and everybody will applaud, and everything will come down to 4 days in Omaha. If you want to go to a regional without having to win the Big Ten tournament in Omaha, then you're going to have to rip off a bunch in a row. They have 20 games left in the regular season. Lord willing, weather willing, and they probably need to win 15 of them at least. So that's the situation they put themselves in. Now the Nebraska softball team is 30-13.
Yeah, they look pretty good.
They had a sweep too. Yeah, they had a sweep against the good team, and so if they win 10 more, 11 more, they might be in a conversation for hosting a regional. They're probably on the outside looking in.
Yeah, right. Yeah, maybe give me about eight more days, 10 days, and we'll see.
Yeah, they're probably on the outside looking in because of losses to, and I do pay attention to this stuff. They had 2 losses to Wichita State, which is ranked ahead of them. Wichita State's very good, but and then they had a loss to South Dakota State. Those 3 losses will hurt them. But every other loss they have is, outside of the loss at Iowa, which you're going to have in league, all their non-conference losses are great, and they have 2 really good non-conference wins. So, they have a chance. They'll have to win a series at Northwestern, which is probably a tall order, but they've put themselves in position to have that conversation. They're not in the will we make the NCAA tournament conversation. They're in the can we host. And Nebraska baseball is in the will we make it. And the only way they're going to make it and not have to win in Omaha is to rattle off a bunch in a row here, like 15 of 20, preferably 20 of 20, which is probably not likely, but they'll have a better team than every team they're going to play from here on out. We'll see what they do with it.
Sam, who pitches midweek, though? Who pitches in a midweek game for them?
Honestly, I don't think it should matter. I think their offense should be good enough to put up 8, 9, 10 runs. Obviously, that's maybe arrogance talking because, Creighton plays these games very hard, and they're going to play another one on Tuesday, and Creighton wants to win that game probably more than Nebraska does and has for a while. So, you can't just take it for granted, but in the same breath, they got to be able to put up the runs. They've got, 45 more days with Max Anderson and Bryce Matthews before they probably go to the Major League Baseball draft. So this is it. This is the chance. And yes, they have 2 elite players. Matthews is probably a little ahead in the Big Ten Player of the Year race, but they're both elite, and you can't really pitch around 2 of them. And so you got to take advantage of the great players that you have. This is
Carey's going to probably make all freshman team. I mean, they have some pieces.
They do. Well, they have them for 45 more days. I don't anticipate either one of them having to return. I think both of them will be able to translate what they've done this year, and that was probably already true of Max. But it'll now be true of Bryce Matthews. They'll be able to translate that into a relatively high draft pick, and so we'll have more stories on the 2 of them here in the next couple of weeks. We'll get on the other side of the spring game, and we'll delve more into especially how Bryce has done it this last year. He's obviously having an incredible year, and his swing is pretty sweet. It's a pretty swing, and now it's going for power.
Sam, we heard the opening clips, and I was kind of thinking it after his last 2 pressers, and I think I asked you last Monday. I said, "Are we kind of on to something?" But now, once is a fluke, 2's coincidence, 3 is he's trending. This is 3 in a row now with kind of edgy, don't settle. This isn't Disneyland. Like, we don't have it that good. We're 4-8. Like, is that the intentionality? Because it sure is coming across extremely strong.
Yeah, like I wrote today, it's a tightrope that they have to walk because I do believe him when he says this is probably a little bit better situation than I anticipated it would be. So he probably got there and was like, there's some pieces here that there's some players that are pretty good, and then I think they added a couple of pretty good players. So I think there's that, but then there's also the reality staring him in the face, which is they didn't win many games last year. They probably underachieved by 2 or 3 games last year, which, by the way, cost Scott Frost his job. And they've underachieved now for 5 years. The Riley's last year, that team was a mess, and they fell apart at the end. They had more talent than 4-8 too, but the culture there was kind of screwed up with Diaco and Riley. So that one's more of a crap show. But the 5 years Frost was there, I don't know that the culture was great, but it wasn't what was going on with Diaco, and yet they didn't win. And so I think there's just an awareness and a recognition on Rule's part of something has happened here where they haven't won games. And so I've got to keep my pedal and keep the pedal to the metal of reminding them that, what they've done isn't good enough and that, the fun comes in the winning. And that's just been hard for this program to come by. So I think what he's trying to do is he's trying to do them right by reminding them that there's a lot more to the story and that they can't just be satisfied or settled.
Sam, do you find it interesting that there are no dead set positions locked in place just yet. The fact that, nothing is shored up is just fascinating to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there's some guys who are going to play some football for Nebraska, and they have a pretty good idea of who some of those are. One of them's hurt. I mean, Ty Robinson's probably the closest to secure. I mean, I don't know if they have enough bodies to put him on the bench. So, I think they've done a nice job of talking about competition. What I wrote about today is I'm curious to see how the Rover situation rises up. Name we haven't heard a lot of in camp is Isaac Gifford. Curious to see what he does, if he's healthy. I'm not saying he isn't, but we haven't heard a lot about him. Curious to see what, if Luke Reimer plays. They don't really need him to play, but if he plays, how he does. Curious to see what the corner competition looks like. Curious to see what the wide receiver situation looks like. Does Nebraska have a receiver other than Xavier Betts who can get by people? And with Xavier Betts locked in? Is he? I mean, everybody knows Xavier Betts can get by people, and there's a lot of things he can do when he's playing. But does he know the offense? And is he qualified? All those things with Xavier, it has nothing to do with the talent. So all those things, we'll see some of those things in the spring game. I'm looking forward to watching the running backs. I'm really looking forward to watching the tight ends because they don't have per se a starter, and so I'll be curious to see how that goes too.
Sam, because I think you kind of took heat's maybe a little too strong of a word, but I mean, there were some whispers, right, with I think the affinity you had, not maybe affinity, the respect that you were giving A.J. Rollins coming out of high school. And there's a lot of whispering, well, was he underutilized or was he just not that good? And what should he be into? There was all of this talk with A.J. Rollins. And as he's never said a word, he's just gone about his business, done what everybody's asked him to do. Becton loved him, said he was on the come. We watched him last spring and we're like, man, A.J. Rollins is having a good spring. And he flips over to dabble in both, and he's having another good spring. At what point do we just give A.J. Rollins some credit?
Well, yeah, I mean, we had him in our Super Six, and I think that was there were some people who didn't think we should have. But A.J., I don't know if he was underutilized at prep, but, at prep, being a running back and being a quarterback and being Alex Bullock, who is a receiver, who's also having a good spring. Those are the things that tend to be really, prep runs the football and then they throw it to one receiver, and that's kind of what they do. And they have great lines. And so, nobody ever questioned Stan Sledge being on the Super Six, that kind of thing. So prep has an identity, and AJ played rush end and tight end. And, I think those positions in any high school program in Nebraska are not necessarily, the positions. I mean, Maverick Noonan benefited from playing alongside a great line and all that other stuff. So I don't want to get into that. But A.J. Rollins looks like a college football player, and he looks like a college football player on defense. He has the size, and as Matt Rule talked about, he has great footwork. He's got great feet. And, he played basketball. And so, he was a great basketball player. And so he has the components that make a good college football player. There's components about being an athlete that translate well to the collegiate level that may not always translate as well to the high school level. Because again, what you're trying to do in high school, and you coach high school football, may be a slightly different, or the caliber of athlete that you're facing is a little bit different. And so what A.J. Rollins is going to be able to do, I think, at that position he's at now, is challenge a collegiate offensive tackle. And that is a 6'6", 315-pound man. So that's different, I mean, and this, there's defensive ends in high school that are, 5'10" and 204 pounds that, shoot gaps and do all kinds of things. Well, you can't do that in college. So, I think that's part of it, is that Rollins was always going to probably be a better college player, or he was going to fit the requirements a little bit differently. He's got great length and all kinds of things. So he's making a lot of plays, and there's there's just a lot of positivity there. And the other thing is Nebraska really needs him at that position. I think when you're able to communicate, hey, look at this side of the ball. We need you, man. Like, this is not a joke. We feel like we've got some good tight ends over here. We brought this guy in from Georgia for a reason. He's special, but we think you can be special over here. I think that's probably a message that he really liked hearing, and I think there's a really good chance he plays a lot of football next fall as a result.
Sam, we saw one player hit the portal in Alante Brown, and this is my first spring. And
what a weird deal!
I'm trying to gauge the slow burn of who's going to be leaving the program as they get down to the 85 number. But after the spring game, do you expect to see more guys hit the portal because of either their role, or is that too soon? Do you think it's just going to be like that gradual burn? I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on realistically what you see happening in this little portal window that we're in.
Between now and, 2 weeks from now, I think you'll see, some guys going into the portal because they'll have their post-spring conversations with players. And, I think it'll be pretty clear to a number of them, hey, we're going to be moving forward. We're going to move on here and here and here. You can kind of notice the positions where they have already done that. The offensive line has already been, winnowed. Defensive back has not been. Wide receiver kind of has been, but I anticipate more receivers leaving. I think there will be. I think they've got a couple receivers who I don't know if they're more maybe group of 5 guys. And then quarterback. I mean, carrying 6 scholarship quarterbacks doesn't seem prudent. It's not 1992. So they're going to have to figure out, how the quarterbacks will have to figure out amongst themselves. So, the way I wrote it today is there's probably going to be 3 who look pretty darn good in the spring game. There's going to be a 4th. I don't know who it is. I guess we'll see. It won't be Jeff Sims, but there'll be a 4th that, and then you're going to have 2 guys that were hurt, and they got to make their own decisions. They got to kind of assess where they're at. And that includes Casey. I mean, I think Matt's talked he's praised Casey quite a bit here in the last couple of weeks. I think Casey is the second best quarterback on the team, at least. He might be the best. He probably has to assess that. He's got one more year of football, and how does he want to spend it? I think you could do a lot worse than spending it with Matt Rule. I think that's a pretty darn good situation. He's going to learn a lot about football, and he's probably going to play quite a bit of football. And somewhere in there, somebody's going to get hurt if he isn't the starter. But he's got to decide that for himself, and I assume he will. Like, we haven't heard from him, and there's no indication that he's going to go anywhere. I mean, I think he'll probably stick it out here, but he's got to make that decision. And if he does make that decision and decides to stay, well, then somebody else is going to have to say, well, this guy's here and this guy's here. They like this guy over here, so what does that mean for me? So there's going to be some complications in there. But quarterback, there'll be a movement. Defensive back, wide receiver. Help me out. Any other position? I could see a defensive lineman leaving who got here a couple of years ago, but I don't know that they're in a position to run anybody off.
Sam, it's interesting that you bring up Casey because I think he's kind of just the guy laying in the cut. I've long maintained for the last probably 6 weeks. He's the type of player that kind of can make you uncomfortable as a coach if he's not playing because I think you know what you're going to get, right? And I think there's some value in that. If being great is just being good all the time, how consistent does this quarterback spot have to be for you?
I think there's components obviously of quarterback play that are related to the other people on the field, and then there's components of what you're asking them to do. And so I think if you're asking your quarterbacks to run the football, what you're looking for is, I don't know what the percentage is, but just 80% great, 20% oh crap, they fumbled the ball. Because as we've said many times, or I have, you're really not going to get a situation where the quarterbacks don't fumble because they're not running back. So, I don't know. There might have been a quarterback along the way. Maybe Jalen Hurts didn't fumble at Oklahoma. I don't really remember. I think he did, but there's probably been a quarterback along the way who didn't fumble, but it's just not that common. And so you have to kind of bake that in. In the 90s, they fumbled the ball too. They just didn't matter that much because they, you were on the team. You know what happened. But they, you can go back and look at the 97 team, and I think they lost 25 fumbles or something. And that's just what happens with option teams. So you have to expect that a little bit with your quarterback if that's what you're asking them to do. And he said that interceptions will happen, but fumbles are controllable. Well, yeah, they're controllable to a certain degree, but the odds and the averages kick into place, and I'm sure he knows that. He's just probably frustrated. They probably fumbled it 5 times or something, and you can't do that. You can't be Taylor Martinez every game. And so, I think there's a kind of sense there. And then what do you ask them to do in the passing game? When I hear a coach say interceptions happen, what I'm hearing is we're going to be aggressive. And you don't score touchdowns without risking interceptions. And there's some truth to that. Like, I'm always a big believer in show me how many touchdowns you threw. That's what tells me the kind of quarterback you're. Show me how many touchdowns you threw. Because that's the name of the game. And quarterbacks are supposed to do that. And if you throw 25 touchdowns and you have 9 interceptions, well, to me, that's better than throwing 13 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. You might have thrown 4 more interceptions, but you threw 12 more touchdowns. I'll take that ratio any day. So I'll take that sort of 4-to-1 ratio. So, I think that's kind of what you're looking for. Somebody who knows how to throw touchdowns, doesn't throw pick sixes, those kind of things. And so, we'll see what they ask of those guys. I think Jeff Sims can be a safe quarterback if you want him to be. But if you also go to him and say, all right, crank it up. Let's see what you got. Look for the deep ball. Do what you got to do. Be Joe Milton. Be Hendon Hooker. The guys in Tennessee, both great players. Be those guys. I think Jeff Sims could do that. And we'll just have to see where they want to turn the dial. Do they want to turn the aggressive dial up to 8 or do they want it at 3? It kind of depends.
Sam, we only have about 1 minute and 10 seconds, so I'll ask you to keep this one short for me. But how far do you think is the separation between Sims and Harburg at this moment?
Well, I mean, considerable in the sense that, one of them's played 3 years of college football and one of them hasn't taken a snap. So considerable, because you have to consider the mental, sort of the mental process in there. You have to consider what that means, the emotions that go into that. I think Jeff Sims I can't remember if he's played at Clemson or not. He had there was a COVID year in there, but, Jeff Sims has been has been in Death Valley. He's been in Syracuse. He's been in some tough environments. And so the gap there is somewhat wide. And let's just see what happens on Saturday. I'm curious to see what Harburg does, what Chuba does, and then what the arm does. And that's Richard Torres. And nobody has his arm on the team.
I'm telling you right now, Sam, he's come on as of late. So very good call on Mr. Torres.
He has a great arm.
He has come on as of late.
Let's see what he does on Saturday, because that's a guy that I think you want to keep in the program if you can. That's the guy, if he leaves, goes to K-State, sits for a year, and then all of a sudden he's throwing for 3,000 yards. Forrest could be somebody they desire to keep.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, take care.
Thanks, Sam.
More next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. If you missed that conversation with Sam McKewon, go back to the podcast and listen to it after the show. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers, Shane Schillerberg over there on the board doing a great job. Happy to have you with us. 590 ESPN Omaha. We are live on Twitter. We are live on YouTube. We will be on in Lincoln starting at 9 o'clock. And we just appreciate having you along this journey with us. Now,
Appreciate you guys.
Appreciate you guys.
Speaking of journeys, the NBA playoffs, long journey.
Real quick,
Go
hang
ahead.
on. Because I don't have, I was talking to you about this off air. I don't have clarity on what Sam meant, but we more than heard, as we talked about, the Sam Sledge and the Super Six thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go back and listen to the frame of reference, but if it was, I don't know if it was tongue in cheek or he was being serious, but like Sam Sledge didn't make the Super Six, and that was a big point of consternation for, I think, people locally. So I don't know if he was like, I have to go back and listen. I don't know if he was kind of making a joke relative to complaining, not complaining, or they didn't complain that he wasn't.
Like if it was a little sarcasm?
Yeah, because the delivery, because like when he said it, I was like, like you could hear me say that like when he said it during the deal, and I was just like, so I have to go back and listen. But I think if anybody would know that whether he made the Super Six or not, it would be Sam. So I have to go back and
we recommend the listeners to do it. We'll do it too.
Yeah, like I just that one because I got he's fantastic. I mean, he's just really good at kind of what he does, and we can ask him a lot of different things. And sometimes, like if you ask him something, he kind of goes for a while. You don't get as many good questions in as you want to go rapid fire. But like when you let him go, and I think he's spot on the quarterback spot too. And nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I actually think he's on to something with Torres.
Now, what makes you say
that? That's true. Very
because
true.
I didn't go to and leave for Kansas City until almost 11 Saturday. So, I mean,
just get an inkling.
I just think I could see it. And I liked what he said. I feel like he just like low-key twisted my arm, but you want a young guy with a lot of upside that has a lot of time left to play. I could see investing in Torres long-term because he may be like a year away. Because remember, he didn't play last year because he was hurt. But it seems like over the last week or so, and sometimes it just happens like click. Now, I'm not saying he's the guy. I mean, people hear what they want to hear. Mm-hmm. But I am saying I think he
could eventually be the guy.
There's a certain level of accuracy, I think, to what Sam said and he's just making a suggestion. He's like, I kind of want to see Richard Torres.
I just think the transfer portal is so hard for somebody to really develop nowadays.
Did you watch the Georgia spring game? Caleb and I watched that. I mean, we were going back and forth watching that thing, and they got 3 good ones. Texas has 3 good ones. I mean,
and you can't all play. So you go somewhere else to try to find a spot to play, and then here you are, the Richard Torreses of the world get buried on a roster.
I know the NCAA told me that the transfer portal swapping to the April 15th day partly was for academics, the semester calendar and quarter calendars, but it's going to be very hard on players that have like basically a 3-week window to make a decision. Right. Like,
especially because you just spent 3 months practicing with this team, building relationships, trying to find your spot. You've been putting in a lot of work. And then if you don't feel like you got the resolve, how do you feel then when you're sitting there mulling over your options for, what could be just 72 hours for certain people?
Yeah, tough window. Tough window. But you better make sure. Plus, I mean, if all the tampering that people allege happens is happening, then, players have had plenty of time. But I can't imagine people haven't reached out to 2 of the 3 quarterbacks at Texas and Georgia.
Well, especially because you get a guy that comes out that says, oh, Quinn Ewers, he's starting.
Yeah.
He's the guy.
I mean, it's not like Arch Manning looked. I don't know. It was just interesting.
Just incredible.
Right? And it's early, right? You don't want to make any sweeping accusations, any sweeping judgments on just a small sample size. But I mean, I was watching a lot of these big time guys regionally at the Under Armour camp on Sunday, and I wanted to make some sweeping generalizations, but then I remembered it's 41 degrees out. The wind is blowing. It's not ideal conditions. It wasn't ideal at all. It was actually miserable. I mean, people were getting blown off the trying to stand on like bleachers and stuff. It's not good. And it was cold enough to where they shut down the 40. Like they just did the 10s.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of those guys hadn't been in those situations before. So, I mean, I have to kind of be careful with that, but it is tempting because you don't want players to jump the gun either. Right? Like sometimes you just got to ride it out. And if I'm the number 2 somewhere, I'm an injury away from being the man. Right? Like,
well, if you're the number 2, it makes sense to stay. But if you're the number 3 or 4, then it's like,
I get it.
I want to go be a number 2.
So it's hard to build quarterback depth.
What do you think?
Not to take away from the NBA, I didn't want to talk about it.
Well, we'll get into that in a few moments because I want to ask you this now because now you have my mind on spring game, like not just Georgia, not just Nebraska, but did you
watch Michigan? I watched Vandy.
Well, I was going to ask if you watched Ohio State.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this weekend.
And I only saw bits and pieces because
they're in my library.
Because of course, when you are in a wedding, you're occupied for the majority of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think of Kyle McCord?
Just okay.
I didn't think he was overly impressive.
Just okay. But I mean,
relative to what they had before at Ohio State.
So that's what I have to ask myself. I mean, they're coming off a handful of thoroughbreds.
Yeah, you're coming off a guy that is projected 1 or 2 in the draft.
I mean, you go all the way back to like 06. I mean, they've had some fellas.
They've had some dudes.
Right?
Yeah.
The one guy that people thought just kind of fell into the Heisman, Troy Smith, wasn't a bad player either. Mm-hmm. So it goes back. And they had a couple on one roster. I mean, Cardell Jones played 4 games and was like, looked good. So I mean, they've had some guys, but I don't know what you have to do with that wide receiving core. I mean, they have some weapons.
And I didn't even realize that Smith and Jigba had a brother that played baseball.
Yeah. I mean,
I found that out listening to the radio over the weekend.
They have some weapons. So I
got to be able to get the ball to Marvin Harrison, though.
They have to be able to plug some holes up front, too. Like that offensive line's got to be better. I mean, because they're not competing against just the Big Ten. Although Michigan's like saying, yeah, they are. They're obviously trying to play for the whole kit and caboodle every year. So, I mean, I've only seen a handful of spring Big Ten teams, but the three that I have seen all had pretty good D lines of places that I've been this spring. So, I mean, Ohio State's got some work to do. I think plugging in some holes up front.
Well, historically, it's always started in the trenches in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So even though you see the conference expanding and maybe finding a new way to call plays in the conference, it's still going to boil back down to the roots of where it all started, where it all began, and what's successful and what has been successful. Because Michigan's made it successful, Ohio State's made it successful.
And if you just think that, like a school like Wisconsin is just throwing it all over the yard now. They're not.
You couldn't be further from the truth.
They had 2 really good backs on their roster at Carolina at the same time in Chapel Hill, and they figured out how to get both those guys drafted. So they know what they're doing.
Michael Carter and
Williams.
Thank you. Good Lord, Javonte Williams.
Yeah.
Who do you think's the better of those two?
So I think coming out, I thought it was Javonte, but I
thought it was Carter coming out.
I don't know.
And I think it turned out to be Javonte.
Just because of the opportunity, so I don't want to be jaded. That's why I'm like, because I didn't love either one of them, to be honest. Like, my assessment on them wasn't great. I was just like, because there's a lot of space runs, right? And that's hard for me to like. Really get out there like that unless you play for the Chiefs or the Niners.
Do they have good coaches there?
Yes. So it's like
Andy Reid was watching baseball this weekend.
It was hard for me to do this.
Should we do a little playoff prattle coming back? I tried to come up with a different word for talk.
Prattle?
Prattle.
Prattle will work.
All right,
prattle.
Let's do it.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
That are pretty good, and then I think they added a couple of pretty good players. So I think there's that, but then there's also the reality staring them in the face, which is they didn't win many games last year. They probably underachieved by 2 or 3 games last year, which, by the way, cost Scott Frost.
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Hey, welcome back. 888-638-4876 if you'd like to get involved in the show at any point. Oh, as my voice goes up 8 octaves.
I like that.
I'm so hoarse. I'm sorry. Sorry for those that are just tuning in. I was talking about how I was yelling and screaming on the dance floor over the weekend. Kind of my thing.
I could just see you losing your mind.
I just kind of vibe.
Is that what you call it?
Even if nobody else is out there, I mean,
you're doing your own thing.
yeah. Sometimes I look like Alex Hitchens. Sometimes I look like Kevin James.
Alex Hitchens. I was a big Eva Mendes fan.
Yeah, she is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, she did some unnecessary things, but as long as she's happy, I mean, I guess.
She's all right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, I love the movie Ghost Rider, but.
I mean, did you not know that Shane is like Don Juan? Come on, man. What? I mean, she's all right.
She's okay.
All right, Shane, we get it.
Oh, Claude, have mercy
Right there.
on my soul.
Who's your favorite, Shane? Who's your favorite?
My favorite what?
My favorite what?
You know what I'm asking. Who's your favorite?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good question right there. I haven't really thought about that before. I'm just saying she's all right. I mean, she's not the best of a actor, I mean, she's cool.
That's what I was interested in. As long as she acts like she likes me, I think I'd be okay.
Hey, what did you?
And maybe I'm just kind of slighted a little bit because I like the character Ghost Rider, but that movie wasn't the best movie. I don't know. I'll just turn my mic off and do something else here. Good morning.
Hey, good talk, Shane.
There's like one of those great big points, and then there was the one that was missed.
Yeah, I mean, life is crazy like that. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Who didn't miss last night was Russell Westbrook. Oh wait, no, he missed a ton shooting. But hey, his stat line was pretty fire.
And he made the good defensive play at the end.
And that's the thing. That was the big moment.
Yeah.
The situational moment. Yeah. That mattered.
How about this? Us talking about Russell Westbrook and situational awareness.
Whoa.
Egad.
Dude, those, are you sure those that's not oil and water? They're meshing now?
I'm serious. I have no idea what the Suns are doing though.
Well, is KD going to ever take over a game?
I mean, maybe he's biding his time, but
yeah, he had 27 points, but the points were way too spread around for somebody like him on
they
the
let
floor.
the Clippers answer every run.
Kawhi played out of his mind.
Yeah, and they should. I mean, they should only get better. That's if they make it past this series, but because you're not going to get George back.
Nope.
I mean, so he's out for this series for sure, and we'll see what happens after that. But man, that was one and right for the pickings. But I don't know. I mean, should Durant have more than 15 shots?
Yes. But he did go the ball 20 times a game.
He did go to the line 10 times.
And he buried all 10, but he should still shoot 20 times.
So those foul attempts do count as they should count as like because he is shooting the ball. But it just seems like I don't know.
He should shoot 21, 22 shots a game.
I just couldn't believe the Clippers' resolve. They answered every run. And that's after they got off to the good start. Then here come the Suns, at the tail end of the second quarter. And you're like, oh, they're in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the third quarter. But yesterday was a game of runs. I mean, Memphis and the Lakers, that score got out of hand. I mean, but the Memphis was up like 101-98.
How happy were you that the Lakers got the 7 and not like the 8?
I was pretty happy.
Like if they would have had any other setting, I don't think the Lakers would be talked about as a team that could make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Conference Finals.
They've got a good draw.
Really good, nice draw because you either play. Well, you start with Memphis and then you either play Golden State or the Kings, right? Sacramento versus having to play
Phoenix or
Denver, Phoenix. Why don't we factor in the 5? Why don't we factor in the Clippers?
I'm a little biased because I hate the Clippers. But again, and I like to make fun of them because that was the team I said that was supposed to have the most depth all year. And I didn't think my main man, T. Lue, had a great year. But, I mean, they do have good personnel, especially if they get Paul George back after this series, if they beat the Suns. But I don't know. There's just some weird matchups. Minnesota will never play good enough defense to beat Denver.
No.
Memphis isn't big enough.
That's going to be a 4-0.
Memphis isn't big enough to bother the Lakers.
And I think if I remember correctly, I said Memphis in 6 or 7 last week.
Yeah.
But I don't feel good about it now that Jazz hurt.
I just don't. How are they going to get enough stops? Their interior. I mean, you're not going to get that from Jaren Jackson Jr.
No.
But you're also not going to get that from Austin Reeves either. But they need Jaren Jackson Jr. more than the Lakers need Austin Reeves because LeBron, I mean, you kept him down. I think he only shot the ball twice in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. So
and the Lakers had a great fourth quarter, but Memphis won't shoot like that either in the fourth.
Quietly though, the Lakers bench is like a legit bench. Rui's not coming in and hitting 5 threes in a quarter again, I don't think. But you better figure out where he is on the floor. This is what they got Hachimura for. And he got loose. But it's just some funny, like, who's Trae Young gonna guard in this Celtics series? Like that's an awful matchup for the Hawks. It seems like.
any matchup against the Celtics is going to be an awful.
I actually think they're the I'd make them the overall NBA favorite.
They're mine too. I told Ravi this when he filled in for you early on in April. They're kind of like UConn. Think about the path that UConn took this year, and then think about the Celtics path. They started out really hot and then had that stretch of games that did not go well for 2-3 weeks, and then they got back on the hot train.
Now, the crazy thing is the Sixers are playing pretty well.
And they're a good team. When you have the MVP on your team, too.
I just don't – I can't trust the
James
Sixers.
Harden? You trust James Harden?
I just can't trust the Sixers. Even though I think Embiid is a different player than he was 2 years ago. Like, I would say go get a big fella, put it on his shoulders. But I need some of those other guys to and Harden is one of them. But so far, for all intents and purposes, he does seem to have accepted his role. You know, as a facilitator, kind of a secondary, tertiary option at times, depending. Now, the Nets have no business being there, but so I don't want to be all. But the best series, the two best series are the ones on Saturday, and they were Golden State and Sacramento and Cleveland and the Knicks.
Did you look too deep into Golden State losing by 3 on the road?
No,
Because
they're
they're
a terrible road team. So that really didn't surprise me. But what did surprise me is how good Andrew Wiggins looked.
And I actually thought De'Aaron Fox being able to take over a game looked fantastic.
He's tough.
And I knew he had that in him, but I didn't think he.
But that's
we don't put him in the conversation like we put Steph Curry, LeBron, like all those guys that we know.
And we'll see what happens with Wiggins, but that's Golden State's Achilles. They can't guard explosive
point guard play
off
or
the
just
bounce.
play
Yeah,
in general?
a backcourt guy off the bounce.
And
I mean, it was gold. It was absolute
facing
gold.
off against a lefty, underestimated. People don't realize the fact that that's a difficult task because when you have to shift your body and force him a different way.
Yeah, he's been left-handed since he's been in the league, though.
But what I'm saying is defensively, as a righty, if I'm forcing someone to go the other way and now I have to utilize my left hand more, that's a difficult thing.
Yeah.
So
that's tough on everybody.
I'm not going to say that these guys are NBA players.
Yes, sir.
Right? They can defend. They can defend anyone. Nice. Yeah, I heard it. I'm just trying to talk through it. Talk through my points.
There's power through,
and
man.
Garrett McGuire comes by with hot fries and honey buns.
What's up, y'all? How y'all doing?
I just don't know if that, like, those wide receivers are going to have to really be good. I don't know if, like, the fan base can rally.
I hope that's not disrespectful in any way.
No, sir. No, sir. He's on
just
his game.
to freaking grab some hot fries and.
That's good, man.
He's on his game today.
That's good.
Is he not the best?
Well put together drop.
I mean, is he not?
Well, for you, maybe. Like, he's the best at giving you a drop.
Right? He's really big, really, really long.
He's not talking about Shane.
I know he's not talking about me.
They don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And
Oh, Coach McGuire.
those guys were jacked up to get back in the building.
How about them going out to, what's that, like a hibachi place? Did you see that on Twitter? They were all at hibachi.
For me.
I kind of they like Gilbert Arenas. We were talking about the NBA hibachi. I like
awesome.
I like hibachi.
Same.
So when we went to one of the other schools in the conference a couple weeks ago, they had a lot of hibachi and also Korean grills.
Oh my gosh, it's
basically
night and
the
day.
same thing. A lot of restaurants in about a 2-block radius. Is tempting. Just didn't want to walk around smelling like food.
Not your thing.
No.
You are the guy that didn't you tell me you showered one time after?
Yeah.
Oh
not
man,
new.
you told me that you showered
Well, one
even
time
your mom's house at your mom's house
After I
because you
left.
didn't want to smell like food.
After I left Pisons. Yeah, I went to my mom's shower. It happens, man. You don't. That
You're
doesn't.
a funny man.
Or weird. I mean, whatever.
I mean, we can go there.
However you want to look at it.
Numbnuts, right?
Neither exactly. Well, neither one of us are as good as our next upcoming guest, though, right? When it comes to making being different cool.
That is a Brady Oltmans.
Correct.
He is just cool. Like you look at Brady and you're like,
Something
man,
about his vibe. Easy breezy, man.
cool.
Doesn't seem.
You know he's listening right now too, and he's like, He's going to come back with, guys, you guys have no idea.
He's like, hey, don't let this frazzled air fool you.
We're talking to Brady Oltmans next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes.
Everyone that's been out still kind of out, you know. Yeah, today. Yeah, today they came out of the wideout position. The quarterbacks had some nice runs again, some scrambles. Jeff Sims had a really long zone read type play. Marcus Washington hit a big touchdown catch. So we had some plays like that. But they weren't. We had some explosive. Yeah, we had two guys that got banged up during the scrimmage. It looked like Judy got hurt early on. Everyone that's been out still kind of out. We've had nothing really major. We've got some guys that are banged up. A couple guys that I'm sure if you're playing a game this week would have had Ben Scott probably available. Would have had AJ Allen close to it.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Everyone that's been out still kind of out. We've had nothing really major. We've got some guys that are banged up. We have a couple guys that I'm sure if we were playing a game this week would have had Ben Scott probably available. Would have had AJ Allen close to available. I think a lot of those guys will trend to be back this week. Blaze Gunnarson's been back practicing with us, which is good. He's a player I'm really excited about. I like what he does. So I think we're in a good space.
Hey, welcome back. Before we get to our next guest, I want to take a moment and tell you about the Beanery. Are you on your way to work right now? Did you stop before you went to work? You're already at work to get a cup of Joe from the Beanery. They roast their own coffee. They're locally owned and operated, and we appreciate having them as a partnership on the show. Gretna, Papillion, Ashland, and the new location off of 168th and Giles. If you need coffee, you go to the Beanery because they serve people coffee. That's their slogan. Hot, iced, frozen specialty drinks. They have food there as well. So it's kind of a good breakfast stop as you start your week off, like you always do with us here at Coffee and Cream.
Are you guys going?
If you're like me and you're a ding dong, not a ding mins, I had a free oil change courtesy of Dingman's. And because I'm a ding dong, I went somewhere else for my oil change because I needed it when I came back and forgot that I had the coupon and didn't realize I did until I walked back into my house and saw it hanging there on the wall saying, "Hey, Andrew, take me the next time you need an oil change."
Oil changes have become expensive too. I'm surprised you didn't take them up on that.
I need another one. Thankfully, it's not. Thank goodness, it's not.
Yeah,
a one
but
and
not
done
for
thing.
a while.
Yeah, but the good news is, like, I'm traveling to Kansas City this week, so I'm going to put some miles on the car.
You're gonna try to rack up 10,000 so you can use that.
Drive around the city,
just
right?
So you can use that.
Yep, I'm driving.
Are you driving to Punta Cana?
Yeah, I'm driving to Punta Cana. Right? Yep. I mean, my car actually, if you look at the tires, they actually flatten out and they hover. So
you James Bond or somebody?
Allows me to have it as like a boat out there. But no, I'm going to be out there for the draft too, so I'll be driving around a little bit. Yeah, like why not? Eat up some miles.
It is drafts. It's draft time, Shane, as we built the schedule for this week.
Yep. And if you need a place to go to take your car, go to Digman's Collisions Center. Let's get to our thanks, Shane. Let's get to our next guest here. He's Brady Oltmans. We love this guy. He comes on at 9:00 every Monday. Nebraska football and recruiting reporter for Hail Varsity. He's one of our own. Brady Oltmans. Good morning.
Morning, fellas. How we doing?
We are good.
Hey,
we are good.
Are you? Tell us how cool you are. Like, if somebody were to like see you walk into, I don't know, just a family gathering, like what are you wearing? Like, how are you strutting?
Look, my man is like the epitome of cool.
Yeah, we're like,
be too cool for school.
We're trying to get your vibe. Like,
wait, was Coach Rule talking about Brady?
Sometimes some guys can be too cool for school. These guys weren't. They wanted to do this.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that's why he's wearing glasses now because of you.
They're almost the same too, man. I'm not kidding.
Yeah, he's just trying to be you.
I am.
Thick frames, man. It's a good look.
My dude, that away. Like I'm serious though. Like Coach Rule, I always joke about the checkers chess. It's kind of getting old after the time that he's been here. I'm well aware that he's probably an outstanding chess player, especially when it comes to dealing with the media. But he's just continuing to push buttons, man. Like, and it seems like they're internal buttons. What do you think's grinding at his gears, or is just kind of how he's wired, do you think, going forward?
Well, I think it's just kind of his personality. I mean, he's no spring chicken to this thing. You know, he did it at the NFL. He had Baylor and Temple for numerous years. Of course, I don't even think the Carolina Panthers even brought as much media attention as Nebraska football does here, you know? So he's just used to it, but it's also how he's wired. There's nothing that he said that I think is ever disingenuous. You know, it's some of it is, you know, some of it's like the coach speak things that you kind of typically hear, but he always underlines it with the sincerity and things that he certainly believes. So but it's also one of those things where it's spring ball. Everybody's ramping up for the spring game. They're undefeated. It's easy to buy in at that point.
They're undefeated. I like that. I'm a big fan of that line. Hey, speaking of the spring game, I'll just ask you, what are you looking forward to? Who have you seen grow positionally the most throughout spring? And if you maybe had to give out a most improved award, who would you give it to?
Oh, wow. Well, I think maybe most improved might go to Omar Brown just because he gets his name mentioned a whole lot. He, for whatever reason, just didn't get on the field much last year. Of course, he's, was a very accomplished FCS player at Northern Iowa, but just couldn't get through that lineup last year. It seems like the coaches really like him. Blaise Gunnarsson looks really good in camp, and he's performing well. Coaches seem to talk about him. He was a little roughed up injury-wise, but he's coming back from that now. Just in this last week, I think Matt Rule kind of mentioned him as one of the guys that could have really cycled in and gave them a lot in the last scrimmage. There's a couple of guys. Like, the defense is one thing I'm really looking forward to at the spring game. I mean, you talk about the significant gains that the defense made during the last scrimmage. Matt Rule kind of mentioned that they were vastly improved. That kind of coincides with Tony White's idea of scaling back the defense on installments in spring ball and letting the guys play, because now they have a better idea where guys fit in. Now they want to give them the confidence to go out there fast and make plays. So that's really what I'm going to be looking for in the spring game. I mean, there's every single position, every single movement is going to be scrutinized and things that we're keeping an eye out. But in total, I'm fascinated with how that defense might look.
Yeah, I just want to go back. I got to give some credit. I remember Coach Chenander 2 years ago during the Thanksgiving break before they got ready to play Iowa, talked about the emergence of Blaze Gunnarsson and how he felt like all of a sudden he was kind of unlocked. He said, I don't know if the scar tissue's just, broken up and he's feeling good. He's comfortable. He's getting the scheme down. He said, but he said, I think we've got something. And then last year, he played in some sub packages and was trying to hang in there, and Rule brings him up again. I think there's something too when a guy is referenced by a couple of different staffs, even though he hasn't played yet, right? Because they're not doing it for goodwill. There obviously has to be something there, right?
Yeah, I mean, you even look at him in practice. He goes up against Raquan Buckley, who is, the body types are completely different.
Yeah, considerably bigger this year.
But Blaze still holds his own. His arms look like, he could bench press a city bus, and his lateral movements and everything looks really good too. I mean, you look at him, immediately popped out and was like, okay, this guy looks different. He looks bought into the process, and he looks like he can make a difference. And to hear Matt Rule speak of him in that way, and even I think Tony White's mentioned him, Terrence Knighton, I think in the little bit of time we talked with him, mentioned him. I think it just shows that reoccurring formula that, okay, this guy might have a place in this team going forward.
Looking for a difference maker. Great segue into this. Incredible wide receiver depth right now. You saw one already hit the portal, but that room is still massive. But a guy you're eyeing up is who right now that can be that guy that gets behind the defense and kind of make that flashy play?
It's kind of difficult to say this because a lot of the new arrivals that they got in are the speedy guys. But very few of the early enrollees are receivers in that position. But I think it's easy to forget how good Marcus Washington is. And you hear them talk about what he did in that scrimmage on Saturday, and he comes up with the winning touchdown. He's the one that makes a big play and another touchdown earlier in the scrimmage. I think it's just easy, especially with Trey Palmer and his flashiness and abilities last year. It's easy to kind of overshadow how valuable Marcus Washington is and his experience. I mean, you put him alongside some of the new guys that they want to have show those brilliances, those flashes of speed and brilliance, while also working in tandem with Billy Kemp, or maybe even Josh Fleeks if his production steps up a little bit more than it was in Baylor. I think Marcus is a guy that could really benefit in this system and could really end up kind of making a name for himself a little bit more than he did last year.
What's crazy is, and this is coming from a guy that's seen his fair share of practice, I was kind of getting nervous. Remember about 10 days ago, I go, man, they're not talking much about Washington. They're not talking much about Farmer. Because those are two of the old heads that I actually kind of like, B.O.
And then the very next day, Miles Farmer was
and then Farmer's starting to come along. And now, finally, we get to Marcus Washington, because that's a guy that all offseason, I'm like, man, I just think he's underappreciated because he does the dirty work. He's not flashy. He's just dependable.
Yeah, and those are the guys that aren't going to pop up on the highlight reel as much as others, but those are the kind of guys that Matt Rule likes. Obviously, he fills his coaching staff up with guys who would like that kind of grittiness and mentality too. And then Miles, to that point, I mean, he's gritty too, but he's also kind of taken on a little bit of a leadership role, showing guys around him.
Yeah.
And he's not, he said he's not afraid to line up a corner and square up on some guys if he needs to, that means a whole lot in that defense where you got to be versatile. If you got a starter and a stalwart back there that's willing to line up a corner, that's a pretty good deal for your defense.
Brady, we just got this question in, roughly 30 minutes ago, and we haven't gotten to the topic just yet, but I'm going to ask you because you're the expert, and DB and I can always touch on it later as well. But 515 Dave on YouTube asked, and we were talking about the quarterback room with Sam and kind of the spread and how Torres's name is now starting to emerge. I asked about the separation from Sims to Harburg. And then, of course, Casey's always going to be in the mix. But he asked, realistically, with a packed quarterback room, how many guys do you expect to transfer and who?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I'd imagine at least one transfers out at some point. I mean, I've even talked with some of my buddies who cover college football on a national scale, and they're quick to point out 6 quarterbacks on scholarship on your roster. That's a luxury not many teams have. Mm-hmm. So realistically, you could lose one through the portal and still be kind of on par with everybody else. And then you look at just the proximity to the field. I mean, Jeff's obviously getting a lot of attention now. He's got some major game time experience, and they like the dynamic run game that quarterbacks bring, which is why Heinrich, even Torres, he's kind of a mobile guy, but he's got a really good arm to him too. And he comes from Texas, so this coaching staff knows him well. Chuba is standing out there too, but then you got Casey and Logan kind of sitting on the sidelines because of injuries. And even, Matt Rule talked about Casey. They like the situational awareness thing on the scrimmage, and Casey was right beside him kind of like talking, here's what I do, here's what they've got to do kind of thing. And Rule really likes that. And, I'm a firm believer that Casey Thompson's not really going to go anywhere without giving it a go to challenge for the starting spot. And that's just not the way that he's wired, I don't believe. And he's not able to fully compete right now. He probably will be later. But at some point, just mathematically speaking, somebody in that quarterback room is more likely to leave than not. But who that is right now, I don't know. I mean, they seem to really like Heinrich. They've got ties with Torres, but if he sees, a brighter future elsewhere, that could go. And so just talking out loud, I mean, that leaves, Chuba, potentially Logan, on kind of the other side of that conversation. But if they see a potential future for themselves in Nebraska, they'll try to stick it out this spring.
Brady, with just a few days to go until we actually see a full-scale scrimmage, has your opinion changed on which coach intrigues you the most from the beginning of their arrival to what you're looking forward to on Saturday?
Well, I think at first it might have been Garrett McGuire, just because, the age thing, but he's also got the NFL experience. I think what mostly stood out was how packed that receiver room is. And I was really curious to see, if he and Bob Wager were probably the two coaches that had the most immense talent, game ready talent right away to go. But at this point, I'm very curious about Terrence Knighton and that defensive line. I mean, they're kind of splitting some of those edge rushers up between him and Rob Dvorak and giving that diversity and dynamic defensive front look that they want. But Terrence has also given some pretty hands-on work with, Stephon Wynn, Blaise Gunnerson, even Raquan Buckley and Nash. They've talked about him stepping up his game. So I'm really curious. I don't know if they really have like the mold of the body that he wants in, the kind of stereotypical big, bulky, but also guys who can get lateral quick bodies that they'd want in, that that Terrence Knighton really wants to get in, or that really loves to coach. But he really likes the guys that they've got in now. So I'm very curious to see what they do and the movements that they make in the interior to kind of cause a ruckus and help the rest of that, bare front or dynamic defense get to the ball a little bit quicker.
We're talking to Brady Oltmans, Nebraska football and recruiting reporter for Hail Varsity, at Brady Oltmans on Twitter. Brady, we heard Coach also say that in the spring game, he wants his ones to go against his ones and his twos to go against his twos. And, I think that's really important when it comes down to this question that I've been wondering about for a couple of weeks now, and that's play calling. Like, if they could really play a game, right? Just say everybody's healthy, they have the linemen, everything. What do you think the play calling is going to look like in this game?
Well, I don't imagine them pulling out a whole lot of tricks. I don't imagine them, digging really in deep with what they want to do this fall. Like trying to picture what they're going to look like lined up against Minnesota. I don't think you're going to get. You might get the outline, but you're not going to get everything colored in that picture. But they want to see kind of that base embryo of offense and defense and how these players respond to it, where they can move, where they can fit in and line up. I mean, they're going to try to be dynamic on defense, move the front seven around, maybe give a couple different looks at the back end, mostly because, they want quarterbacks to see everything. They want to attack. They like quarterbacks being live. So they practice just like they want to play. I mean, that's a big point of emphasis for Coach Rule. And then on offense, they're going to line up. They're going to run the ball. They like to run the ball. They want to make that a point of emphasis. But then they've also got a whole lot of receivers that need to show out that they can block as well as run and catch. So I'd see a lot of mixes. The stage progression look. Plus, that's also a good way to help your quarterbacks kind of showcase their skills and see what they can bring to you in the summer and the fall.
So essentially what you're kind of getting at there with that answer is going back on what Coach Rule said too about situational awareness and making sure they finite the little things before they get a little more adventurous.
Yeah. I mean, what they're going to do is basically just they're going to show out. They're going to make it a competition. They're going to keep guys dialed in so that they're constantly, if not only getting that physical rep, they're getting the brain rep, and they're trying to work in situations, get in there. So when they are in a game scenario, they can just go. It's more muscle memory than it is kind of scrambling, trying to figure out what they're going to do. And through that, you're going to get a pretty good idea. If not the whole picture, you're going to have a good idea of the direction that the offense and defense are going to be treading into in the summer and fall.
Brady, before we get you out of here, if you're watching this team from a year ago, you've heard this staff talk about doing the little things and getting over the hump and being put in situations where it becomes, you don't panic when you meet them in real games. Where would quality special teams be for you in terms of being a deciding factor to get over the hump this year? Because it seems like it's one of those things we've kind of taken for granted.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it ranks up there, and clearly it's a big point of emphasis for the coaching staff. I mean, I think Matt Rule talked on Saturday about how they want to be a little bit more consistent in the kicking game, and he mentioned that they need to clean things up on special teams. They need to get more hands, on blocks and everything like that. And I read that personally as it's not like they're awful now. They just have a really high standard that they're trying to live up to and get there. And Ed Foley he's been doing this a while. He's been doing a whole lot of times with Matt Rule, so they know what to expect out of each other. He believes it should be good. Bob Wager, with a vast special teams background in the high school game and a really dynamic special teams mind, is helping out on that side of the ball. He believes that they can bring something to kind of a big punt, which they've got a big punter. They'll have a spirited kicking competition in the summer, and whoever ends up out there is going to be able to kick some field goals. They want to be able to block a kick, block a punt, get a big return on kickoff or punt coverage, or return, I should say. Either way, any one of those things could add up to sparking the offense or giving a lift to the defense or something in order to swing the game and momentum back in Nebraska's favor. That's just something that the team hadn't really done a whole lot of, especially in the return game in recent years. So I think that, especially knowing the athletes that they have now, this coaching staff really wants to unlock that potential and use that as a way to just springboard guys to the NFL if they want to get there and potentially win games.
So I've seen a couple of return drills live, which I really like, because I think that's really the only way you get better. If you had to rank the return game versus when they actually put their foot to the ball, which one needs to be better for you this year?
Oh man, I'd almost say return game, but even not so much as like the guys carrying the ball. It's just the lineups, the blocking schemes, where guys are going and flowing. It's just got to be better. That full totality of it. They hadn't sprung really any big kickoff returns last year. Their punt coverage was, I think they returned maybe less than a dozen punts in total all last season. I mean, and that comes from blocking. It comes from scheme. It comes from alignment. And for me personally, I see it in practice. They start slower with the coverage team being half speed or so that guys can visualize and see guys coming at them where they need to be and anticipate those movements. And then they work up to full speed in order to block to acclimate to it. To me, that is a very appealing way to learn it. It's an easier way to identify and get to where you need to be faster. And I think that it could mean some big things for Nebraska pretty quick.
Brady, last thing for me, I always like to pick your brain about recruiting. I was chatting with DB briefly about the decent recruiting weekend that is going to be present during the spring game. Names to keep an eye on. Do you think it's going to have heavy impact being able to be there in the environment for a lot of these guys? Your thoughts just on the weekend as a whole, there recruiting wise?
Oh man. Well, I kind of go in big check mark or bookmark dates, and the spring game is always kind of a big one. You want guys to see the game atmosphere that Memorial Stadium brings as much as possible. You've got guys like Jacob Smith, Willis McGahee IV that have seen Nebraska, came through and visited before, and they say, okay, well, I want to see what a game looks like, because if it's that big of a deal, well, come see like one of the most highly attended scrimmages in that college football in the country. Right now, I think the rest of the week, don't be surprised if you see more recruits come in or get invitations. I mean, it's a smaller invite list right now than you'd imagine, but keep in mind, they've kept the doors open the entire spring. They've had some 70, some 80 kids come through in the totality of spring ball. So they'll probably keep getting some guys in. I think apologies, I can't remember his first name, but the Stein kid from Grand Island Northwest got an invite this morning.
Tight end.
Yeah. So he'll be coming into the spring game. Just imagine a lot more of that happening in the early part of the week. It's a really good way to give a strong impression of Nebraska's fan base, Nebraska football, and keep that a lasting memory going into the June before they start hosting official visits and get guys in for camps. So it's just a really big rallying cry in a moment. And Nebraska fandom is going to be as crazy as ever, not only for an appetite for some actual football, but a clean start with Matt Rule. Everything that he said, everything his coaching staff has gotten the fandom to believe. I mean, that place is going to be rocking, regardless of if it's going to be 70, or if the forecast holds true and it's 50 some degrees and partly cloudy. I mean, rain, sleet, or shine, that place is going to be popping on Saturday. And you want recruits to see that, because that's going to stand out from any other place that they go.
Brady, we appreciate you, man. Thanks so much, and enjoy playing your PS5 today as I see it in the background.
Hopefully I can swing some time to fit in some FIFA. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
I like it.
Okay.
Thanks,
that's why he puts football in his bio. Brady Oltmans.
Soccer. He says, and I think he said my first Stein, the tight end from Grand Island Northwest, that says he will be in attendance. Carter Nelson, I believe, says he's coming. Is this third time, I think, being down this spring? Whether it's been a practice or a spring game, which is never a bad sign.
Yeah, if you want to be around the program, it's always a good sign. Yeah. Show up early and often. That's what Coach Rule likes. We'll do the sport cleanup when we come back. Still, like a lot that we could touch on. We could get into more with baseball. We could get into more with softball. We can get into bowling, Maverick hockey, Creighton basketball. Who knows? That's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio. Things you wanted us to get to from the weekend, but we didn't.
Clean up on aisle 6.
It's the Coffee and Cream Sports Cleanup on Hail Varsity Radio.
Man, speaking of cleanups, thank goodness my neighbors all had their trash cans out this morning. Because when I was backing out, I'm like, oh, I need to put my trash can on the driveway. And I would have forgotten, and it would have been devastated.
Are you full?
Close. And we weren't here this weekend, and we have a full trash can right now. So even if I would have filled that, it would have been, well, how rough would it be? Because I'm not going to be here this weekend. So is trash sitting in the trash the bad idea? Like the bad part?
I don't know.
Do I ask my neighbor to put my trash can out?
I scrambled real quick. Oh, your neighbors actually let you keep your trash can out front? Yeah, mine don't. No, they kind of do.
Mine's on the side of the house.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh.
So I keep two back that's out of the sight line.
Okay.
Asked not to have your trash like in the driveway unless it's like the day of, which is
thing.
Which is cool. But so one of the trash cans is in my garage.
Okay.
So you don't see it till you open it, and that's the one we kind of fill up. But like I quick did the emptying of the bathroom and some other stuff just to get it into
this morning.
Yeah.
Good on you.
I suppose if you're going to be gone for a little bit and if the can was going to sit outside like it does at apparently Andrew's house, I suppose you'd want to have a little bit in it to make it so it doesn't blow away as easy.
Sure. I was thinking more from the stance of, hey, I get back and this trash has just been rotting in the can.
Yeah. If you got any meat in there, get rid of it.
Yeah.
Do that. Do that. Kind of like,
interesting.
you know. We were talking about, we got early baseball today, Shane. Are you excited for that?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Angels, Red Sox?
When you say early, you mean early.
Yeah,
that's a 10-10 start.
Yeah. And by the way, Shane, I know you're discouraged, but there was that big snafu over the Boston Marathon and no wagering. Do people wager on the Boston Marathon?
I had never heard of it, but I
read
into it because it intrigued me, right?
I was like, why is this a thing?
Who do you bet on? Like, how do I know who's the fastest one there?
Oh, you'd probably figure it out.
Like, you could look it up and be like, oh, you know,
I bet
this
my guy
person-
Aaron knows.
Yeah, this person runs a 2:45 marathon. 2:45.
You have no idea how close I
don't know
was
if I
just
could
getting this
drive it.
kicked off the
Maybe-
air. I was gonna make up a name of somebody he was capping, and it was not gonna be very PC.
That's all right.
Maybe you're betting on times,
Ooh,
not
live radio.
necessarily.
No, I
not
don't think you're
necessarily
betting
the
on
runners.
times. You would have to bet on people.
So what was the snafu? Like, is it just because it's too easy to be on the take, or
I guess it's too easy to predict who's going to win that.
really?
Yeah, like if somebody is being talked about, like I don't know who's running in it. I didn't read too much into it, but say Tom Smith is the fastest.
It wouldn't be Tom
It wouldn't
Smith.
be Tom Smith.
No.
Hey, what name do you want to give me, D?
No,
Come on.
no,
Give me a name.
not doing it.
Anybody you'd like.
No,
All right.
not doing it. Let's just go with Tom Smith for the sake of the argument.
If Tom Smith or Usain Bolt's brother were running in it,
Jimmy Bolt,
Jimmy Bolt, maybe Scott
Bolt. Yeah.
We're Will Bolt, maybe Will Bolt's running
Will Bolt,
in it.
yeah.
Whoever's running in it, if he's talked about already, there are articles probably out there that's like, hey, this is the fastest runner in the marathon.
Yeah.
So if it boils down to it, he's not going to lose.
Yeah.
She's not going to lose, whoever it is. Like, you're probably betting on first. It's not like golf where you do top 5, top 10 finishers, right? Or is it?
First inning unders?
First inning under? No, or overs now. We are betting the over in the Angels Red Sox game. Over.
No, what's the total? Are you just
8.
joking? Because, well, you are something. So over today with Ohtani, who's he going? Is it Bello?
Yeah, Bello. Over. First inning, over.
Guessing the Angels are favored?
Yes, minus 140.
And by the way, how do you go backwards? Like when
Really?
it comes to
That's awful low for Ohtani.
I'm for it. That offense, though, this is what I talked about last
That's
year with Garrett
awful
Cole.
low for Ohtani. He's only a minus 140 fave.
When Garrett Cole was pitching last year,
That reeks.
0 run support. Never got run support. He would always pitch a close game and then they'd lose.
They're
3-1.
begging you to take Ohtani.
It's kind of like this year, though, early on for Ohtani. I mean, yes, he's 2-0, but they don't score a lot when he's pitching.
Yeah, that I just can't believe so many people were high on them this year. I don't know.
I'm still for it. 7 and
I know.
8. I'm cool with it.
No, I know.
I'm cool with it.
And for my buddy, I got a good buddy. We should really be buddies.
My buddy.
Eminem, Mr. Myers. He's a huge Angels guy.
Is he?
Oh yeah. Might even be in his Twitter handle. No, it's not. But yeah, so for his sake, I'd like to see them at some point get over the hump. I mean,
Make the playoffs.
It's been a long time since Downing and Gritch and guys like that, Fred Lynn, but Rod Carew. But
that was just like 3 years ago.
I mean, it is. Well, fudge for Socha to be out of a job, a couple years ago with the start that he got off to with the Angels. Baseball is a cruel sport in terms of managers, right? Like AJ Hinch got fired.
Yeah, well, he got fired because
Twice. Well, it's a couple times. But remember, that was his second stint when he went to the Astros.
Right.
So it's like,
yeah, but you had to see that firing coming. Now what's he managing the Tigers now?
yeah, but I mean, so what's
Benches
wrong?
Javi Baez.
So shitty. Hey, he's booted him out of 2 games.
Yeah.
Like before they're over, go shower.
Mm-hmm.
But I told you, this was super innocuous. We were just talking about flair in the game, and who did I tell you I couldn't stand?
You said Javi, and I like Javi.
I
because of
can't
it.
stand Javi Baez.
Yeah, because I had said I like the passion, I like the intensity, I like it all.
Yeah.
Take the good with the bad with him, though. really take more bad than good right now.
Yeah.
Pretty rough to be a Tigers fan.
Did he do it?
So driving back from Kansas City yesterday, Caleb's in the front seat, Breeze is in the back, and we had to go to North Lee Summit, but we stayed for basketball. We were closer to the airport. For the tournament, we had to go clear across Kansas City. So on the way back, I was like, hey, that's where the only real good Gates is. It's kind of in this area. And I was showing them the stadium, and Micah goes, that stadium's either built up way too high and the field is way too low, or there's nobody at that game. And I go, it's the
kind of a combination of both, though.
It's actually the latter, but you're right. But there's
you sit in the nosebleeds. This is you. Your knees are in the back of the person in front of you.
That crowd was staggering for the Braves. I mean, that's the Braves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people don't travel anymore for the opponent. Like us, we would travel to see a certain opponent.
That's the Braves. That's I mean, they're going to probably win the World Series. Yeah, I said it.
Yeah. Well, that was our predicted World Series champ.
Yours too, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was shocked at the smattering of the Royals' attendance. But
was it Brady Singer?
But I did see.
Or did they want to see Scott Barlow blow it again?
I did see a stat where they've trailed. I'm gonna blow this.
Like Scott Barlow?
I think they've trailed for like 80 of their innings, total innings played.
The Braves?
No,
or the Royals? Yeah.
And it's maybe more than that.
Something like that.
That
they're never winning.
Benning.
What do they have? 4 wins this year?
Yes.
It's a gunner!
Did I tell you I was talking to a guy that exaggerated their win total? And I'm like, come on, 40 games. You really think they're only going to win 40 games? I'm like, they could probably win 40 games.
Yeah, we're 4-12. We're worst record in baseball.
Take that monkey off our backs.
Behind the Athletics.
Yeah, something like that.
And I feel like we jinxed Brunsey because when we talked to them, they were 3-9. They're now 3-11.
Who's that?
So I feel like we basically so even the Nats have 5 wins.
Game over.
Could be the A's at 3-13.
Yeah, sorry, Brunsey.
He got it.
Hey, the Mariners did kick it into gear. They lit a fire beneath their bum.
They heard me talking bad about
500.
And nobody's gone and ran away and hide in that division. I mean, the Astros are kind of struggling out of the gates. They're, the Rangers are sitting up at the top, but I think they're only 1 game over 500, right?
The Rangers, yeah. 9
So
and
I mean,
8.
certainly not
Am I right when I say that? 9 and 8?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I do believe.
Oh no, they're 9 and 6.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
Double check for me. The AL East has the only team with no teams below 500, right? Everybody's 500 and better in the AL East.
That is correct.
Is there another division?
No, and no.
Yeah, so the Red Sox can change that today if they stub their toe against the Angels, but pretty impressive start for the AL East, which is why people couldn't, get all the wild card teams right, because you didn't want to have too many in one division, but the East is like, maybe you should have.
Yeah. And didn't we? Oh, no, we only put 1 because we both excluded the Rays.
Yeah. While we put the Rangers and Mariners in.
NHL playoffs next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Here's Pasternak 2-on-1 over the line right side to Bertuzzi. Pasternak shoots. He scores! That's the hat trick. 60 goals for David Pasternak.
Center point, Sergachev, open. Left circle, Stamp goes. Score! Stamp goes!
4 seconds left. Not sure they know. 2 seconds. 1 second. It comes down to the last play. It's over. Nathan McKinnon has a hat trick, and the Colorado Avalanche have the Central Division for the third straight year.
As a Blues fan, Nathan McKinnon gives me a lot of personal injury, DB. And who do I need to call when I get personal, or when I have personal injury? That is our friends over at Dyer Law. They can provide me a helping hand whenever I need it. 402-393-7529. Dyer, DYER.law. That is trusted professionals for my personal injury claim. I don't know if I'd win that suit, though. I'm not gonna lie.
I mean, you are emotionally distressed because of the Blues, but no worse than me for being a Pens fan. How about that?
Let's keep talking hockey, man, with our next guest, Kevin Allen, national columnist for Hockey Buzz and Red Wings beat writer at BY Kevin Allen on Twitter. Kevin, is he here with us, Shane? We have lost Kevin.
We've lost Kevin.
I see on the phone, and then I look up. I'm like, I don't see anybody.
Yeah, he's probably like, why is this guy wearing the thick rim glasses? Well, Kevin, it's because I can't see.
Or it's because maybe your vision's a little blurred because you were drinking Zipline all morning.
Wouldn't that be something?
Dear old Nebraska.
That's all I need. Hey, Mom, be there in 10 minutes. Sorry, don't mind the Zipline.
Dear old Nebraska brew. What about Copper Alt?
Yeah, I think she's out.
Nope.
All right.
Okay. Kevin's back. Kevin Allen on the phone. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, there he is. How are you?
Excellent.
Good. We were kind of joking earlier in our sports cleanup with early day baseball in Boston and Massachusetts passing gambling. They're not allowing betting on the Boston Marathon. But, man, do the Bruins look like a good fave, although we know history. Only 7 times has a President's Trophy winner hoisted Lord Stanley's Cup. Would they get your money, Kevin, as the fave?
Yeah, that's just a great question, because I know history too, unfortunately, and recent history even. I mean, we've almost forgotten now that before Tampa Bay won back-to-backs, they, set a new NHL record of 62 wins, and then the Columbus Blue Jackets swept them in the first round. So I think that's fresh in everybody's mind as well. But I will say this: the Boston Bruins, it wasn't just the numbers, but they just looked like a all-encompassing team. They've got the goaltending, they've got the defense, they're a scoring machine. Their goal differential was unbelievable. So I think they're certainly a legitimate Stanley Cup favorite, and it's going to take a Herculean effort to knock them off.
Kevin, why didn't the Bruins organization get the memo after unceremoniously getting rid of a coach? The end of last year, wasn't met with like rave reviews from everyone. You start with some of your big guns on IR. It was supposed to be maybe they reload because they're Boston, but it certainly wasn't supposed to be record setting. Why didn't they get the memo?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question and a good presentation of what happened. I mean, Bruce Cassidy is a very good coach. He's proven that this year. But the Bruins didn't think, the message was getting through, and that the team needed a new voice, and so they went with Jim Montgomery, who has done a great job of sort of bringing everyone all together. So I think it was a combination of factors. First of all, they got incredible goaltending early,
unbelievable,
and I think that sort of remedied the problem they had with guys being out of the lineup. Allmark has just been fantastic all season, and then people forget that Swayman has been just as good. So, they've had it all season long. But I think, getting through that period of the first 3 or 4 weeks when, Marchand was still out and Bergeron was banged up, and once they got through that, I think from there it was clear sailing.
Kevin, you talked about the Bruins having really good goaltending backed by good defensive play, and that's kind of what I always look for too as the playoffs go about, because it seems as if that's the all-encompassing winning formula for a team that ends up going the entire way. So who do you think is set up best when it comes to that thought more? Get the Bruins out of the conversation. Is it the Rangers, the Hurricanes, or the Stars?
I would say it's the Stars. Now, saying all that, just because, they've added enough offense now, and Jason Robertson's turned out to be a superstar. But Ottinger is probably, doesn't have the national aura. But I think anybody within the hockey community knows that he is a top flight goaltender. And also their defense is led by Heiskanen. They've got a group there that can really help out a goaltender. So I think they're kind of a sleeper, but I really like them as a team that's kind of got all the elements to it. And then Carolina has the best defense, but their problem is, look, it is going to be a defensive goaltending struggle in the playoffs, but their offense just isn't the same without Svechnikov. And then, they were hoping to get a boost out of Pacioretty, but that never happened because he was injured twice this season. So I think Carolina is actually ripe for being upset even in the first round with their matchup with the Islanders.
Relative to how their team plays and is playing, which goaltender is more important to their team, Vasilevsky or Shesterkin?
Well, I think right now it's Vasilevsky, because the Tampa Bay Lightning are not the same team that, has gotten to the playoffs. Well, just in general, you look at that defense now, and, McDonough is gone, and they just aren't the same team. And they've had to play a little bit differently. They've tried something different. They went out and got Tanner Jeannot at the trade deadline, really overpaid to get him, because they wanted to maybe to change it up a little bit. They're not as skilled as they were before in the blue line, and they're not as offensive as they were, so maybe they're going to play more physical and tougher. But, they've struggled down the stretch. They have just not looked good. whatsoever. And so I would say that, they have to have Vasilevsky stand on his head if they're going to make any kind of run.
McDavid, Matthews, are they legacy players without a cup? How do either of those teams, the Oilers or the Maple Leafs, end up making a run toward the Stanley Cup? Because those are the two teams that always seem to have really strong players, if not the best players in the NHL, and just never do it.
Yeah. I think the league has kind of been waiting for Connor McDavid and Draisaitl to get a team around them that can make a run, and this could be it. I mean, they've been very good down the stretch. They ended the season with 9 wins in a row. They're, they made the trade for Ekholm at the trade deadline, and it almost feels like a missing piece acquisition as well. And they found their goalie, and it wasn't the guy they got in the off season. They thought Jack Campbell was going to be the guy, but instead it's been the rookie, Stuart Skinner, who's come in and really played well for them. So
sure has.
They've got good ingredients there. They've got a motivated group. Bringing in Evander Kane last year really helping. Hyman is added to the team last year. And even Ryan Nugent-Hopkins gets overlooked. Like, he's had an incredible season, 100-point season, and nobody even mentions him.
So it's interesting. So, and we only got a couple minutes. We got to get you longer. Gosh, Kevin, you're so good at this. So I was asked a month ago, would I take the Big Five, which were
the Bruins? It was the Bruins, Maple Leafs, Avs, Hurricanes, and Lightning.
Or the field to win the Stanley Cup. I took the field. I took the field because my pick to win the cup is the Edmonton Oilers.
Yeah.
Kevin, what would you have done? The Big Five or the field?
I would have taken the field.
Let's go.
Well, first of all, because it's the NHL. In the NHL, this is not the NBA. In the NBA,
Yeah, you can take the faves.
One of them is going to win. Yeah, always. But in the NHL, we've had, teams that were not favored, and we mentioned the President's Trophy and everything that win all the time. And secondly, there are some teams out there that are capable of winning, and led by the Edmonton Oilers outside that Big Five. And
it could be the Stars. It could be maybe not the Wild as much, but that's a tough
Good
series.
goaltending.
But they're getting good goaltending. Like, I'll take the field.
Yeah.
Florida Panthers.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned the Vegas Golden Knights as well.
Yeah, they're winners. They're winners.
Yeah, so I mean, there's the field is you get 11 teams. That's pretty good. So I think you made a good bet.
Good or bad for hockey that the Kraken are right there in the thick of things.
Great.
Oh, I think it's good because I think the NHL. I don't know whether it was calculated or they stumbled upon it, but this is the way you should expand. The old days of giving the expansion teams next to nothing and then let them sort of limp along for a decade is not the way to do it. And they obviously did that with the Vegas Golden Knights. They gave the Seattle a similar shake as well, and then in their second year, they're competitive, and they've got some interesting players there. Berners is a really good young forward, and I'm not sure his back and they're going to go very far, but I think it's good that they're making the playoffs, kind of cementing that team in the Northwest there as being an important part of the NHL network.
We're going to let you off the hot seat. We'll try to bring you back next week and get who's drinking from Lord Stanley's cups and that low-hanging fruit prediction. But I want to let you get a couple of games under your belt first, Kevin, just out of respect.
All right, sounds good. Look forward to it. Call me anytime, guys.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. And thank you for joining us on the show today. We'll be back tomorrow for more Coffee and Cream here on Hail Varsity Radio.